Invincible.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more Blackout Racing on F1 23. We are back today for rounds 15 and 16 of the championship. Last time we had two pretty hectic races at Spa and at the Netherlands. Some split strategies going on, some craziness going on. In the end of the day, though, it was Thanasi and the Mercedes who took 2 race wins on the bounce, which was mightily impressive, might I say. So congratulations to him. Timolele, though, and a bunch of others hot on his heels, though. And as we go through this weekend, or this week, rather, Formula 1 weekend, to Italy, Monza, the Temple of Speed, and for round 16, the French Grand Prix. Not provisionally on the 2023 calendar, and possibly not the best track for, well, just anything. But, you know, anyway, the point is, we're going to France for the second race of today. Because, well, mathematically it adds up so it's an even number. And just because we can. So that's what we are doing. Before we move on, let's have a look at the wide Drivers' Championship standings. Thanasi now has a commanding lead in the championship. Almost 50 points separate himself and second-placed Buck 20. But do not count out Timolele. He is right on the heels of Buck 20 in third place after consistent results last time out. Milo in 4th place, only 1 point off Timolele. Stark in 5th, Blackjack is in 6th. Tom, despite missing 2 weeks on the bounce, and he will be missing this week, as I understand it. So hopefully we will see him back soon for more Blackout Racing. He is sat in 7th place currently, even with a couple of weeks on the sidelines. J Lane in 8th, Dirk in 9th, Buck 57 in 10th. But crucially, in 11th place, the man who has been reserved for the past 2 weeks of Blackout is already up to P11. What an absolute madman. Rycro, I tip my hat off to you, my friend. And in other, well, in more harrowing news for those in 8th and 9th in the Constructors, I believe his points now count to Alfa Romeo's total in the Constructors. Which is not on these standings, but you can imagine what that will, the stipulations of that will look like. So, sorry, I guess. In the Constructors, though, we have McLaren. The Papaya Pro still at the top, but Mercedes are catching big time. They have turned up the spice-o-meter. They have got their ghost chilies on the go. Hi, Magico. Good day. Hope you're doing well. Can't wait to see some absolutely wonderful racing in Monza. Monza particularly is going to be chaos because it's a sprint weekend. So, if you saw Silverstone and saw how chaotic that was, we had our first red flag of the entire season. So if that's anything to go by, then we're in for a mad time at Monza. We have Aston Martin in third. Venus and Serena need to pull their socks up because they are in fourth place currently, but still pretty high up, so don't take anything away from them. The Prancing Horse is currently in fifth, so with a slight limp in its left leg, but I'm sure they'll get there soon. Red Bull are in sixth, with AlphaTauri 7th, Haas 8th, Alpine 9th, and Alfa Romeo 10th, but of course this hasn't been updated, so you can imagine where Alfa Romeo properly are. Which, if my calculations are correct, is 135 points, so they are actually currently 7th place, which is pretty incredible. So now the waiting begins then. Soon we go racing for the first race of the evening. It's the Temple of Speed. It's the Italian Grand Prix. And of course there will be no short qualifying. I can confirm that it is a sprint weekend. I thought it was a sprint weekend last time out in Spa. It turns out I was wrong. I am at least 110% confident that that is not the case here today. So, don't adjust your sets. Keep your eyes glued to your screen, because you will not want to miss the madness. That is Monza at the sprint race. Well, it is almost time, ladies and gentlemen. We have done plenty of waiting, and soon the waiting will be over. But for now, this is what your driver lineup looks like for today. We have 2 McLarens, 2 Mercedes, 2 Red Bulls, even, for this week of Blackout. We've got 2 Ferraris, we've got 2 Aston Martins, and a bunch of others besides. We have a nice smattering of participants and competitors today, with 15 people. There are, of course, a bunch of reserves. Red Bull have a double reserve lineup again. Daniel Gilligan is in the Red Bull, with Giraffe also joining him. Wilco returns in the Ferrari. Good to see you again. Great to have you back with us. Maximus returns in the Alpha Tauri. Stark in the Ferrari there at the bottom. Half of them are ready, half of them are not. It's probably a precursor as to how the sprint race is going to go, but I wouldn't be so sure. Of course, the sprint race, if you saw at Silverstone, it is a reverse grid order. Reverse championship order. So, I mean, that's barring reserves, which is not ideal if you're a reserve. But if you aren't a reserve, if you're at the top of the championship, for instance, if your name is Zeus or Thanasi, you'll be plastered right at the back of the grid for the sprint. If you're towards the bottom of the championship, then good news. You have a chance, a big chance, of winning and race in Blackout. Don't forget, of course, it was Vulcan in the Alpine who took a lights to flag pole to win victory at the sprint race in a scintillating Silverstone spectacle. Like I said before, the race itself was absolute chaos and teamed with absolute turmoil, especially in the case of the first red flag of the season, which saw the then championship leader Milo out of the race, as well as Slam. Slam really did slam into the Red Bull that day. Right, anyway, moving on. Here we are in the pit lane of possibly the most prestigious race in Grand Prix history. Other than Monaco, which many deem to be the jewel in the calendar, there is nothing that screams motor racing heritage more than Monza. Almost no other track can match it in terms of its status and pedigree, especially with a fan base like the Tifosi. A little bit of trivia for you before we begin. Or maybe you don't care. If you don't care, just don't listen. By the way, I'm going to say it. The point is, Italy has had 2 world champions in its time. Both of them in the 1950s. That being Giuseppe Nino Farina, with the first ever Formula 1 World Championship in 1950. And then in 1952 and 53, Alberto Ascari won 2 championships in a row. And since then, there has not been a single Italian world champion in Formula 1. But while the Italian drivers haven't been able to claw up championships, Ferrari have done a great job at it. Still, I believe, the most successful Formula 1 team of all time. Pending recording. Anyway, the lights are going to come on for the formation lap, and it's Maximus who will lead us away. That is your grid order. Both Red Bulls, rather unlike real life, are right at the back of the grid. Turn the clock back to, well, the mid to late 2007 for the most part, and maybe 2008. You might have seen them down there. Of course, not nowadays, because as we all know, even if he did start last, Max Verstappen would win the Italian Grand Prix by 65 light years. Warming up the tyres then. Of course, the sprint race is so much. It's just as much about getting the moves done as it is picking your battles at the right time. You don't want to be too brash, too vulgar with your moves. I don't even want to know what that entails, but the point is you want to just keep it together. Whilst others, of course, will fight behind, the DRS and the slipstream is such a powerful tool in this particular venue, as it is anywhere, but particularly with the massive straight off of Parabolica, even up to Ascari chicane if you're not too far back. The slipstream is so strong and the DRS so potent that you'll be able to breeze past any competitor as you wish. But it's a game also of saving your battery. It's so easy to deploy it too much just to stay in that DRS. When do you choose to give that up? Because who knows, if there are 2 people in front of you and they battle, happy days. Shout out to this guy, by the way, who messaged me and told me how on earth I should actually spectate. So thank you. I now can actually spectate to my heart's content, and I know exactly what is going on and how to move past 10th position. You just press the shift key and then the number key. That's amazing, isn't it? This is why you always follow the advice of the master. In this case, though, starting in 14th. Through no fault of his own, of course. I was going to say it wasn't a masterful performance in qualifying, but there was no qualifying to decide this sprint order. It was pure injustice in their terms, but in the case of Maximus, he'll be jumping for joy as he heads to his grid slot, which is clear track central. No one ahead of him as he lines up his AlphaTauri in first position. Technically, this is one of AlphaTauri's home races in Formula 1, the Italian Grand Prix. The number 3 donned on the AlphaTauri car as Big Sam gets disqualified for slightly overshooting the yellow line. We wait for the others to line up then. There's Tanasi. Straight ahead of him, Timalele. Both of these guys had some incredible battles during last week. Got a bit frosty at times, but that's all part of the fun and the joy as we go to 5 red lights for the sprint. Away we go, and let's see what kind of a start Maximus gets, of course, on the medium tyres. Jamie Tarquin on the softs. We're going to ride on board with him as we go down to turn 1. Nothing doing, though. He might think about a dive. He does go for a dive, and suddenly there's an Alpine going towards, well, Sardinia, quite frankly. Magico goes down the escape road and loses a whole host of positions. That's not the way he wanted his race to start out. But it's Jamie Tarquin in the Haas car, being opportunistic and diving down the inside on those soft tyres to get past the AlphaTauri. Buck 57 completes your top 3 with Big Sam 4th, Wilco 5th, Magico down to 6th, demoted immediately to 7th and then 8th. As Buck 20 and Thanasi get through. There's a yellow flag and Magico's had some kind of problem. He's got front wing damage. There must have been contact, and it's the worst possible start for the Alpine driver. He's waved the white flag, and we're not even at the French Grand Prix yet. Terrible news for him. Even J-Lane didn't have the greatest of starts. Just straight at the back there. Not ideal at all. But Jamie Tarquin beginning to stretch his legs in that Haas car. The gap up to nearly 9/10 of a second as he finds a nice bit of track extending to do. Meanwhile, Giraffe is getting straight past Daniel, who himself has been displaced by Timalele, although it's side-by-side affairs between Timalele and now Daniel's teammate Giraffe as we head down towards Parabolic around the outside. A turn in there, there's contact, and my goodness me, I mean, it looked like, you can't tell much from this camera angle, so I can't exactly be Judge, Judy and Executioner on that one. I thought there was plenty of room, but never mind, as Daniel moves his way up to P11. Giraffe demoted down to P12. Magico into the pits with that front wing damage as he glitches onto the track. There are aliens already, and it's compounded with a safety car at the end of lap number 1. Well then, that all happened, and while that was happening, I missed completely. Thanasi has already made his way to P4, the championship leader. Ruthless and efficient, ruthlessly efficient as ever, has already promoted himself from 13th to 4th. And the position change O-meter is all you need to see. He's gone up 9 positions in the space of an entire lap and a bit. Crazy stuff from the Mercedes driver. It's like I'm watching the mid-2010s all over again, even the late 2010s. Mercedes imperious, as Buck 57 moved up to P2, Maximus down to P3 from his original pole position. Once again, in the sprint race then, we have a safety car, and this is your running order. Jamie Tarquin is P1 after getting the move done into the first chicane at the first possible opportunity. A very opportunistic and clean move from the Haas driver, so kudos to him. Buck 57 is in second place, and I have said that right. I didn't say what you thought I said. Meanwhile, Zeus has somehow moved up to P3, and I'm not entirely sure why. Something's happened there. He looked like he got let through, or something particular happened. Maximus is down to P6 meanwhile. What on earth happened with him? I have no idea. Meanwhile, Daniel's gotten a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. I assume that's due to the pit assist. Once again, the pit assist gremlins strike again as Stark. Well, I think he's changing his front wing. Unfortunately, the camera angle is about as useless as, well, the Emoji Movie, so I can't tell you that for a fact, but he's now demoted behind Daniel, who puts himself onto new soft tyres. And of course, the safety car is forgiving. It will wait as long as possible, as the game allows it to, for Daniel, Stark, and Magico to catch back up, which is a blessing for them. Meanwhile, it becomes a procession at the front. Here we are, nice and calmly, with the Haas driver of Jamie Tarquin, the only one flying the flag for the Haas team this week. has a clear track ahead of him, apart from that red Mercedes, which is just ahead of him. Which could be a bad omen, because look who's just behind. 2 Mercedes, second and third. The ever ruthlessly efficient Zeus. The calm and collected and calculated Buck 57. Captain Wilco commandeering 4th place currently. It might say a green one next to his name, but he's gained a position and yet stayed where he is, so I won't ask questions there. Meanwhile, Maximus has somehow dropped behind Big Sam and Milo. I'll be honest with you, I don't know what's gone on there. I will wait for confirmation on that, if there is in fact any. But there we go. Stories so far then. Elation for Thanasi, deflation for RD Magico. As Maximus leaves the session, there must be connection problems or something going on there. Hopefully he returns very soon. But like I said, deflation for Magico. Started very high up, down 10 positions, started in 4th place, went straight on at the first chicane. And when push comes to shove, he pushed his car too much and shoved it down the escape road, which is very unfortunate. As a result, he finds himself in P14. J-Lane, meanwhile, out of the race. These are the things I've missed, apparently. Daniel, meanwhile, comes back into the pits, and I assume onto more new softs, and he has done. Because by the end of the lap, they'd already caught up to the back of the safety car queue. So now, in miraculous news, and in positive news for the Red Bull driver, he now has tyres that are at least a lap fresher than everyone else's, mostly 3 laps fresher than the front lot. And we know how quickly the softs go off. We know how quickly and how abrasive the tyre wear is on this game and how cruel it is. An element of intelligence in the strategy is what you need to make the most of your results. I was waiting to see last week, actually, as Daniel put on the softs. I said in the commentary, I thought he was going to get up to 5th place, genuinely, because the softs are such a potent tyre, and he'd waited until pretty much the prime moment. I mean, we'd seen the softs at that point go up to lap 13, but no doing at the end of the day. We did not get to see what kind of a comeback that could have initiated, and as a result, we will never know. Still, we process behind the safety car. I can only assume it's coming into the pits because Jamie Tarquin has dropped right back off it. Safety car lights on the top have gone off, and indeed the safety car is in at the end of this lap. That was a very, very late call there. I had to do all the guesswork, but my guesswork was correct. Watching F1 for some years has done me some good. Meanwhile, Wilco moves ahead of Zeus quickly. It's getting all very interesting and spicy towards the fringes of the podium positions. When does Jamie Tarquin pull the trigger? He's gone for it. And now we are back underway, racing at the sprint race in Monza. And immediately, Thanasi is going to go for the move on his teammate. I should imagine Buck 57 does not make this particularly difficult. And no, he does not. He lifts off, but it could open up an opportunity for Wilco behind. What it does open up is an opportunity for Buck 20, who just misses out on getting a sumptuous dive done round the outside. Meanwhile, Milo gets a great exit and breezes past Big Sam. And now we watch Tim Alele rounding the Alfa Romeo driver. Unbelievable stuff. Big Sam dropping positions hand over fist on the restart there. Not ideal at all. It's Jamie Tarquin, though, keeping his P1. And the gap now nearly was 2 seconds there briefly. But now Thanasi is in hot pursuit in that Mercedes car. If Jamie Tarquin's pace is anything like Spa, though, which hopefully it will be for him, then he should be able to control this. But immediately the gap coming down hand over fist, almost 3/10 gained in just the Lesmos. Meanwhile, Stark making moves on Maximus, and Big Sam once again being gobbled up like a goose. Straight away, Stark goes past on the run down to Ascari. A nice clean move there from the Ferrari driver. And now Maximus will be hot on the heels of the Alfa Romeo driver, clipping over the curbs, firmly in the slipstream and in the hunt. Something's happened to Daniel, meanwhile. He's losing a lot of time, and that's why there is front wing damage on the Red Bull. That is not what he needed as he went on those newer soft tyres. Magico looking for a move on Dirk, meanwhile, as it gets very interesting, as surely Maximus will go for a move. Slipstream was being deployed. He dives out of it quickly. Maximus has rejoined, meanwhile, so actually it's AI Maximus making the moves. Does human Maximus think about the dive bomb? No, not even with the number 3 donned on his car. He bides his time. He waits for the right moment. As I said, it's about picking your battles at times. Just choosing the right moment, the time to pounce. Someone who will be waiting for his time to pounce is this man, Thanasi. Absolute tyrant. He's absolutely hounding Jamie Tarquin. The Haas driver could be gobbled very soon as through Lesmo 1 we go. Watching progress down behind. Who's going to surge through the field? Stark, meanwhile, on the back of the... Well, it's not really even a train. It's a 3-car bus, I suppose, led by Milo. That's probably really insulting. I apologise. It's not a bus. You're doing fine, mate. But the point is, he is holding up Timalele and Stark behind, who will be looking for any avenue past. Meanwhile, Zeus losing a tiny bit of time through the Ascari chicane, which is not ideal, because look at this. Here comes his teammate firmly in the slipstream, but there has to be a team game being played as well. They are currently second in the constructors' standings. Buck 57, of course, as good of a driver as he is in this case, unfortunately not at the top. And meanwhile, there's another safety car. What on earth has gone on there? Something's gone on. There's penalties for speeding in the pit lane. I genuinely have no idea what on earth's happened. A safety car has, well, sprouted out of thin air, I'll be honest with you. I'm trying to see who's pitting, just to see if there was any front wing damage, in fact. But Wilco gets past Buck 20 in the pits. Giraffe waits in the pits for a while. And that is waiting for a penalty. So it isn't even actually front wing damage. No, it must be. Well, something happened to Giraffe, but unfortunately, I can't tell you that because, well, blame Codemasters personally. But another safety car here with just a couple of laps to go. And what was shaping up to be a spicy end to the sprint race suddenly has just tamed down a little bit. It's tamed like a tiny terrapin. But it does give Daniel and co the chance once again. It gives the pack a chance to catch up once again. And of course, it has to wait for Jamie Tarquin to come round, so it will be out for at least another lap. And we should get one more lap of sprint racing. And how interesting is that going to be? To see who on earth decides to pounce on the last lap. Does Thanasi go for the move into the final lap? Does he risk it all just for that one extra point? In theory, no, because he's leading the championship, of course. He has to play it smart as well. But we know Thanasi. We know he's ruthless. We know he is an aggressive human being when he needs to be. It's calculated. So maybe he will. That's the question, and we'll have the answers very soon. Meanwhile, the procession begins again for at least the next lap. And it should only be the next lap, because by the time that is all completed, we will be back underway for Green Flag Racing for one final lap of the sprint race in Monza. Your current order then, as we process behind the Mercedes red car. Jamie Tarquin in the Haas still holding down first position as my screen goes black. So that's very good indeed, isn't it? It was Zeus in second, Buck 57 in third, Milo fourth, Timalele in fifth, Stark sixth, Big Sam in seventh, Magico eighth, Dirk ninth, and Captain Wilco commandeering 10th place, albeit on newer soft tyres. Buck 20, meanwhile, dives into the pit lane for a switch of tyres. The safety car is only going to be out until the end of this lap, though. But here comes Daniel. The battle coming out of the pits. That's going to be the interesting thing. And Daniel gets past. So, Buck 20 looking to get the newer tyres on. It's cost him because, of course, the Delta disappears after that first lap behind. And now he's got egg on his face and his tail between his legs because he has relegated himself down to 14th position. Not great news at all. And the safety car, as I predicted, will be in at the end of this lap. Now, if Jamie Tarquin is a sporting human being and driver, he will back the pack right up to give a chance to the likes of Maximus, of Giraffe, of Daniel and Buck 20 to catch right up. And it looks like he is doing just that, just controlling the pace as much as he can. Of course, there's only so much controlling you can do before your car ghosts and you get phased through. That is not something I think I ever want to see or imagine, so let's think about that. Giraffe's got a 5-second penalty for ignoring yellow flags, meanwhile. That is quite something. There's all kinds of penalties being dished out, but Jamie Tarquin pulls the trigger, going out of Parabolica, and I tell you what, that is a decent little restart there, but he got a bit of a slide on at the exit. So now we look at Thanasi to see if in the slipstream he can find the pace, gobble up that extra bit of grit, and make an audacious dive into turn number one. He's way too far back to think about that, and rightly so. Just ducks back into the racing line and will bide his time, I'm sure, with one final lap. A big slide out of turn number 1. Somehow, though, doesn't lose him any time. That is an interesting set of affairs. I assume it's just a visual glitch. Meanwhile, he's catching up right on the heels of the Haas car. This is going to be one tense final lap here as Buck 57 is right on their heels as well. Milo in 4th, and Tim Alela will be looking to improve his position more, as will Stark. Daniel and Co, meanwhile, did manage to get through, and immediately diving down the inside. There's a bit of contact, but just enough space left. You could fit a sheet of A4 vertically through that gap, but it is just enough that he gets around. And meanwhile, Buck 20 gets right round the outside of the Haas car. Fantastic, but here's potential for the race-winning move. Jamie Tarquin will defend this hard, and he doesn't have to defend it too hard in this case. Zeus knows what he needs to do. He needs to keep it calm. He has one final chance into Parabolica. Jamie Tarquin needs to get to that inside line straight away if he's to think about winning this race. But to the inside, Thanasi goes. The momentum round the outside, is it too much? It's going to be a photo finish between the Mercedes car and the Haas driver. Down to the line we go. Who's it going to be? Thanasi gets it out of the final corner in just 41 thousandths of a second, separating the Haas and the Mercedes car. Jamie Tarquin had the initial momentum, but the exit let him down. And when push came to shove, the exit was in the favour of Thanasi. And with the world on his shoulders, he conquers the grid again in the Blackout Racing League. He will start the race on pole position. And with another 8 points to his name, Jamie Tarquin so close to getting the full complement of sprint race points, just misses out on first place, but still will start on the front row for tomorrow's race. It will be a Mercedes 1-3. Unbelievable. Milo 4th, Stark 5th, and Tim Alele down in 6th. Got passed by Stark on the final lap. Not what he would have wanted in his pursuit for the championship lead. Big Sam managed to get 7th place in the end, so kudos to him. And Magico, despite going straight on at the first corner on the first lap, manages to recover to get 1 point for the Alpine team. You can see the rest of the grid there for yourself. The Red Bulls recovered pretty decently in the end, 10th and 11th. Not ideal if you're J-Lane or Maximus. Of course, Maximus started the race right at the front of the field. Not the way his race would have hoped to have panned out. But the great news is we go straight from the sprint and into the main event. Who's in for a mauling at Monza? Well, that is a good question. Hopefully no one, because that would be quite disgusting and Twitch would probably ban me. But we'll be in for some great racing, and that's all you need to know. Same again for me. You know what, though? It's points, and you can't knock points. That's the most important thing. And who knows what can happen. Of course, points awarded in the Blackout Racing League, as I've said many a time. But for those of you that are new, firstly, welcome along. And secondly, points are awarded from 1st down to 15th position. So that is very good, in this case, when you have 15 people racing. They will all have a complement of at least 1 point to their name. As we preview the event then, Mercedes are on the march, and they are looking properly quick. 1 and 3 on the grid for the Italian Grand Prix. Jamie Tarquin, though, don't count him out. You never know what could happen. It's a 50% race for this first race. We had the sprint race. We chose to do a 50% race for the Italian Grand Prix. The French Grand Prix is the 35% race because I'm presuming that's as much as they could bear, to be honest with you. So whatever floats their boat, and I can't say I blame them because I don't. We wait patiently for the Italian Grand Prix to get underway. 27 laps at the Temple of Speed. DRS mayhem. Who knows what could happen? It could be chaos. We are about to find out as the formation lap gets underway with the Mercedes man leading us away on the medium tyres starting out. And let's have a look down at the field to see exactly what everyone has chosen in the strategic switcheroo. Thanasi on the mediums, possibly going mediums hards or mediums softs, no idea. Jamie Tarquin, though, starting on the hard compound tyres and immediately regretting his decision as he slides off the track like he's hit a patch of ice. Buck 57 on mediums, Milo on hard, Stark on mediums, Timalele on hard. So far it's line astern until you get to Big Sam, who's starting on the soft tyres. The first proper switch up. Magico on the hards, Dirk on the softs. Daniel Gilligan is on the hards, Giraffe on the softs. Buck 20 on the hards, Wilco on the hards, Maximus is on the softs, and J-Lane on the softs. almost every single person starting in an even number position is starting on the hard compound tyres. And if that isn't a useless F1 statistic or fact for this race, I don't know what is. Milo has left the session. In other news, he's already regretting his decision to start on the hards. That or more likely, he's actually just disconnected, so hopefully he is back very soon because the race hasn't started yet, in good news for him. Meanwhile, Thanasi and Jamie Tarquin have gone way ahead of the pack. My goodness me. What on earth's going on there? Lots of weaving going on, of course. I've said many a time that you can just, well, flick the brake bias all the way forwards and hope for the best, but, you know, each to their own. I will not be one to judge, although in the weaving in this case, it's literally just to keep temperature because look how far behind everyone else was. And if the race is looking like that by the end of lap 1, we are in for an absolute treat. Hopefully not weaving across each other because that's not very nice. Thanasi on pole. The main man who challenged him last week, Timalele, down in P6, but of course starting on the hard tyres. We will soon find out exactly who reigns supreme at the Temple of Speed. One's named after a Greek god, one is called Tim, but of course there are many others who could pick up the spoils here in Monza. Can the Tifosi, can Ferrari spring a surprise at their home turf? As Stark parks right on the marks, fantastic there. Daniel's been disqualified, I assume he's overshot the mark, which is not great news for him. But soon enough we will get underway, and with 5 red lights turning on, turn up the noise! It's lights out and away we go, and from Thanasi it's a decent little start, but from Buck 57 it's an even better start, but he's boxed in immediately. Thanasi goes to the inside and it could soon be a Mercedes 1-2 if they coordinate themselves. Jamie Tarquin's still there on the inside, but there's wheel banging all over the place. Very aggressive and robust move straight away there, as side by side go the Mercedes and the Haas driver, and that means Thanasi can escape into the wilderness here in Monza. Buck 57 has to settle in behind for now, but could go for a move into La Roja. Meanwhile, it's Stark going for the move into La Roja. Ferrari down the inside of a McLaren. It's like 1998 all over again. And now Milo's compromised, and as the Aston Martin of Timalele hot on his heels. Don't forget Big Sam, though. He started on the softs, and who knows what kind of pace he could have. Daniel's promoted himself up to 9th. Wilco down in 15th. What on earth happened there? Not an ideal start for the Ferrari man, who did start, I'm pretty sure, a lot further up than that. So, Thanasi is first, and Buck 57 going for a move round the outside of Ascari, and Jamie Tarquin did not have enough. Well, he's not covered himself in glory there, I'll be honest with you. He needed to leave the racing room. Instead, he just thunderbolted his way down the inside and, well, had no regard for leaving a space on the outside. But into Parabolica, it's textbook, as down the inside goes Buck 57. And now Milo's had a chance to catch up and get a breath of fresh air as he repassed Stark and now has momentum on his side. The McLaren man now pulls to the inside. Jamie Tarquin to the inside of Buck 57. And we have a 3-wide moment into the first chicane. That could get very ugly, and they all say no thank you. Buck 57 takes it very wide though, and Jamie Tarquin's paid the price big time. Onto the gravel, he got squeezed. And now Milo moves himself up into P2. The momentum is in Milo's favour. And suddenly, he finds the McLaren man up towards the top end of the rostrum, but here comes 3 wide into La Roja. You don't want to be doing that too much. Milo just about stays alive, and Stark promotes himself into P3. Already all kinds of crazy racing happening, and into the inside of Lesmo. He shows the nose, but nothing doing there. Meanwhile, Buck 57 has dropped a load of positions now, down to P8. So just as quickly as Jamie Tarquin got squeezed out, I can only assume the same happened to Buck 57, or a massive mistake was made. And now he has the Red Bull of Daniel Gillingham for company. Meanwhile, Stark's past Milo up the road. The gap, though, already 5 seconds to Thanasi. To the inside goes the Red Bull driver, leaving enough of a car's width, as he should. Enough racing room, and he is comfortably up into P8. Well, craziness there. Meanwhile, Magico's promoting himself from P8 up to P6. Fantastic stuff in the Alpine. But Jamie Tarquin shaping to go right round the outside. How he lost the race last time. It's not scaring him off that opportunity, though. And he does get past, but he's actually come into the pit lane. He must have had front wing damage, even though he made that fantastic little move. So fair enough, kudos to him for getting it done even with front wing damage, but he does have to concede. He comes into the pit lane, and as you can clearly see, it will be a new front wing for the KarlsCars. Some robust racing in the opening laps of the Italian Grand Prix has cost Jamie Tarquin a whole heap of positions and time. Meanwhile, Thanasi sets about eating up the miles. The gap 5.8 seconds already, as there was loads of scrapping behind. And immediately we are back in the mid-2010s, the late 2010s land for the Mercedes team. As a Fernando Alonso-style turn happened there, but you know what? It seemed to work for him. Down towards Ascari he goes. It's nice, calm procession, really, for the Mercedes man. Of course, your championship leader, and he doesn't really have to do anything audacious. Meanwhile, Big Sam's found his way down to P12, now P13. He's been absolutely mugged out of the second Lesmo. And after starting on the soft and after a host of optimism, it's turned into pessimism for the Alfa Romeo driver. Can't be as pessimistic as the Haas driver of Jamie Tarquin. 23.5 seconds behind, though. But good news for him, realistically. He doesn't have to worry too much because we've seen how much time people lose when battling side by side here. So really, if he just keeps his nose clean, remains consistent, finds a rhythm, he could actually be right in the hunt here. Here's your leader then. Thanasi, 6.3 seconds separate him and the second place man, which is Stark. Meanwhile, battling going on behind us, Daniel Gilligan is demoted down to P13. Maximus is out. What on earth happened there? He's just, well, something's happened. He's chosen to retire. I have no idea what on earth's gone on there. But there's a yellow flag, and there could well be further repercussions in terms of the steward's decisions after that one. We'll have to find out. For now, it's Wilco getting past Big Sam again, battling side by side. If there's anything you can count Monza on, it's having side-by-side action. And we're about to see some more, I suspect. Just 2.5 temps as they come out of the second Lesmo. Maximus leaves the session, meanwhile. I have no idea what's happened. I hope everything's okay. I mean, it's not because he's retired, but Milo breezes straight past the Ferrari driver. It's McLaren versus Ferrari, but on the outside goes Stark, and that is how you get through Ascari wheel to wheel beautifully. Kudos to both drivers there, but it means Timalele's got the run as we head down towards Alboreto Corner. It was the famous Parabolica, as we've heard so many times, and to the inside of Parabolica, no! A slight hit, and Timalele's round and he's out! Timalele retires from the Italian Grand Prix. He went for a very, very audacious move, and it's cost J-Lane as well. Straight into the back of the Aston Martin. It's cost my vocal cords, but you can understand why. Drama on lap number 4 of the Italian Grand Prix. Thanasi missed the pit lane, so actually it's played right into the hands of Milo and Stark, who get a free pit stop straight away. Fantastic. Big Sam's retired as well. What on earth's gone on there? I have no idea what's happened. He might have crashed into the pit lane, but before I can blink, we've lost 3 cars in the space of about 15 seconds. And the biggest loser of them all, Timalele, the man who's trying to chase the championship lead, went for a move into Parabolica. Perhaps, well, really should have bided his time more because it's cost him hugely. And if you're in pursuit of the championship lead, that is exactly what you don't need. I am a poet and I didn't know it. My goodness me. Drama here then, as we entered lap number 5, or we are way through lap number 5 actually. Thanasi is your leader by 14.2 seconds, but don't read too much into that. They are sticking to a delta. Magico's up to P2 meanwhile, and you know what, if I was you, I'd just stay out and claim the glory for P1 currently. I would not blame you for doing that, and considering how much everyone else battled, you're in with a fair shout of actually keeping the lead, or at least being on the podium if they fight it out as much as they do. A torrid twist of fate then for Timalele. Went down the inside, tried to get past the Ferrari man. Wasn't all the way alongside, and unfortunately it cost him. Contact with the Ferrari. Sends him spinning. And unfortunately out of the race. Front right sheared clean off. And already nearly an hour of streaming Italian Grand Prix madness. Thanasi, meanwhile, does not come into the pits, as I thought he might have done, but actually he thinks track position is the way to go. Let's look at what tyre life everyone is saying then. Of course, his mediums are only 5 laps old, so it's not going to be a huge detriment if he doesn't. And I'd like to think at the end of the day, with just the track being primarily straights, that tyre life isn't the most limiting factor in the world, as J Lane leaves the session. And, well, I don't blame him, to be honest with you, through no fault of his own. Or maybe it was, I don't know. Either way, he speared into Timalele, and that was all she wrote for the Williams driver. Here we are then, behind the safety car, and this is your order. Thanassi's still in P1, but look who's in P2 and P3. Magico in P2, holding up the barricade for the Alpine team, with the Red Bull of Daniel Gilligan in P3. Tell you what, towards the end of last week, I mean, I know it was chaos, but we talked about some of the racing that happened. We just went through it. I've never heard that man almost explode, but today almost was the day that he spontaneously combusted. Luckily he hasn't, and he is now currently lying in 3rd place, which is great news for him. Let's see what tyres everyone else is on then. I mean, you can see it in front of you, so I don't really need to tell you, but now everyone on hards or mediums, completely brand new. If you're on hards, you could choose to take it all the way to the end of the race. If you're on mediums, are you feeling brave? Are you feeling lucky taking your tyres all the way to the end? Of course, now, if you're on older mediums, there's a chance you can now go from the mediums straight to the softs. Generally speaking, that has been possible in previous F1 games, but in F1 23, with the way the tyres fall off a sheer drop, a cliff, you don't quite know if it's the right way to go. But with a safety car just preserving your tyres that little bit, there is hope yet for that strategy to work. Let's talk Monza then. My goodness, Monza. I said it was a track where, if you think of Formula 1, if you think of motor racing heritage, you'll undoubtedly think of Monza at some point. You'll think of the Tifosi, Ferrari. It embodies the passion of Formula 1 and Italian motorsport. Ferrari have been happy customers here many a time, of course. Most recently with Charles Leclerc behind the wheel of the Ferrari in 2019, holding off both Mercedes. And then they dealt with the FIA. Whatever they dealt is none of my business, but it was certainly dubious. But they have seen many a success here, of course. It was in fact Ferrari driver Niki Lauda, in my opinion, that was one of the greatest comeback stories of all time in Formula 1. Crashed heavily, of course, many F1 fans will know the story. Crashed heavily at the German Grand Prix, at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Severe burns. Came back at Monza, managed to finish 4th, despite still having bloodied bandages and all the other repercussions that came with it. Giraffe's got a severe collision penalty. I don't think it was that severe, but Thanassi pulls the trigger, and away we go for more racing in the Blackout Racing League as we head on to lap number 8 of this race. Thanassi leads us away then with Magico second. Daniel Gilligan could possibly make a move. Meanwhile, it's actually Stark who comes into the pit. No idea what's happened there. Jamie Tarquin's come in as well, excuse me. Meanwhile, it was Wilco who looked like he was looking very zesty for a move there, and he does look zesty. Down the inside of Giraffe he goes. And does he think about getting it done? No, Giraffe defends robustly but fairly, and so the move will have to wait as they head up to La Roja. But the second McLaren is right behind as well. It's the battle of Ferrari versus McLaren today here at the Italian Grand Prix, as Buck 20 could look for a move. But here comes Wilco down the inside at La Roja and into the left-hander. He is comfortably past the Red Bull driver, and a nice and clean little move there from the Ferrari driver. And now Buck 20 steams down the inside into Lesmo 1. Fantastic stuff there. And now Buck 57 is sniffing all over the rear of the Red Bull, weaving this way and that to find any kind of move. It's Daniel, meanwhile, who's looking to promote his position in the Red Bull, and something has happened catastrophically to Magico. Massive spin, virtual safety car. It could be a huge collision. Luckily there was not, but he suddenly moved across. I have no idea what on earth happened there. A sudden jolt to the left from the Alpine driver, who had the peripheral vision of my nan, to be honest with you, but he's let through by Giraffe at least. I don't actually know what on earth happened speared left into the Red Bull. No damage on the Red Bull, of course, because damage is limited to just the front wings and the tyres, which is good news if you like curbs. But a virtual safety car once again neutralises proceedings. It means Magico, of course, will get a free pit stop so long as it stays out for the requested amount that he will have in mind. Meanwhile, it's pain for one Aston Martin, it's gain for the other one. Dirk is up to 4th now in his Aston Martin, so that's great for him. One of the big winners after pitting onto fresher tyres under the first safety car. Wilco, though, only half a second behind him after making that great move on Giraffe. What is a great move, though? It is all subjective. Well, he got it done. He got cleanly past. I think that's a pretty great move, if I do say so myself. And there was no damage, there were no tears, and there was no debate afterwards to be had. So virtual safety cars ended then, and away we go. Daniel Gilligan reduces the gap to 3.4 seconds, courtesy of the virtual safety car ending, and actually keeps up during Lesmo. I was going to say something different there. I can't say that, can I? Lesmo 2. He actually keeps up quite nicely indeed, and so the battle rages on. The Red Bull on hards now being pursued by the medium shodden McLaren as we head through lap number 9 and slowly onto lap number 10. But Millo's got an incredible exit out of Parabolica and chooses to opt for the inside line, goes on the grass. As brave as you'll ever get here at Monza. He'll, of course, have grit on his tyres. Hopefully that's all cleaned off, but luckily the grip on his mediums is superior for him, and he does make his way up into P2. Wilco, meanwhile, got past Dirk almost immediately. Up into P4 he goes. Buck 20 now in P6 with Giraffe 7th. Stark in 8th position. After all is said and done, the virtual safety car hasn't affected him too much. It looks like he could go to the end of the race if he's lucky. Jamie Tarquin not too far behind him as I press 6 instead of 9, so read into that what you will. Buck 57 now down in 10th position, albeit on the soft tyres, as is Magico, 11th on softs. Still all to play for, though, in this race here at Monza. Thanassi still leads them on. Millo getting a comfortable gap just about to Daniel. However, out of La Roja, the gap just teetering under a second then. Hovering around that margin, and as the Red Bull tries to look for some time. Of course, he is in cockpit cam. We have to take that into account. He is hindering himself. Thanassi then comfortably leads, clear track ahead of him, doesn't need to do anything overzealous or over the top, he just needs to keep it together. Meanwhile, this is the battle that's closest and heating up right now. It's Buck 20 versus Dirk. Buck 20, historically, of course, loves to race higher wings. In Monza, though, you can't do that. I believe at least a few people, I imagine, are running 0-0 wings, going full balls to the wall on straight line speed. Out of Parabolica, though, it's immense grip and great confidence to make the switch out of the corner. But Dirk ducks into the slipstream, and so it's not over yet. Despite having DRS, Dirk could still go for the dive bomb yet as he pulls out of the slipstream. Does think about it, but no, concedes the position, and rightly so, stays behind the McLaren. Nothing too overzealous. I've said many times it's about picking your battles, and they both picked them very well there. Buck 50, Buck 20. I'm mixing the two bucks. It's a bad time concocting a Bucks fizz, really, to be honest with you. That's disgusting. But anyway, Buck 20 up to P5. It's Buck 57 sets the fastest lap of the race, courtesy of being on the softs, a 1:21.4. It's now Captain Wilco who's about to commandeer P3. He has steered his Scuderia ship up to P4, and he's now steering it into the DRS range of the Red Bull as we hurtle down towards the Ascari corner. Daniel, I assume, won't defend this too hard, of course, on a completely different strategy, but Wilco actually bides his time. Interestingly, Timalele's left the session. Meanwhile, he does not want to watch this ensue anymore, and I don't blame him, really, out of this race with egg on his face. It's not been a great race for the Aston Martin driver, who could have well been up at the sharp end, but caused the first safety car. It meant a lot of drivers peeled into the pits, one of which was this man we're riding on board with. The Tifosi will be jumping for joy as he has DRS onto the main straight. Not much of a fight put up by the Red Bull because it's almost no contest. Fresher mediums against those hard tyres. Captain Wilco sails past into P3. Daniel looks to the inside, sticks the nose out, says hello, don't make a mistake. Luckily, Wilco does keep his mettle. He's in fine fettle, and he moves himself up into P3 and a spot on the podium for the Ferrari driver. There will, of course, be a point where these cross over, even though they are newer mediums, of course. But, of course, they are more abrasive. The tyre life is less. Shock. So there will come a point where potentially, even though they are slightly younger, they will cross over as there's a yellow flag into Sector 1. Buck 57 and Jamie Tarquin. Something's happened with them there. I have no idea what. He's weaving around maniacally. I can only assume he's not very happy with what on earth's happened there. There's a yellow flag briefly. I'm ashamed that once again I didn't catch it. But Buck 57 is up to P9 regardless. The gap between Jamie Tarquin and Stark was about 5 seconds, I believe. So that's increased now by double. So something catastrophic happened there. Of course, these two had a frosty battle in the earlier stage of the race. And Buck 57 running slightly wide out of Lesmo too. But they did have a very frosty battle indeed. And it, well, in the end, it cost Jamie Tarquin. And then Buck 57 cost himself a host of positions out of La Roja. And they've come to blows again. It's the chronicles of Buck 57 and Jamie Tarquin here at the Italian Grand Prix. Here comes Buck 20, though. In DRS range of the Red Bull driver. Who has good pace on his older hards. Has the joint oldest tyres lap-wise on the grid. Technically, Thanasi has the oldest tyres because he's on mediums and the same age as Daniel Gilligan on the hards. Jamie Tarquin with another 5-second penalty, this time for speeding in the pit lane. He's retired from the session. He is absolutely incandescent with rage as the Haas team will harry his car through the pit lane and then say, well, here's, I don't know. What do Haas say? They're American. Race cars don't need headlights because the track's always lit. What a great quote that is. There's a new follower. I'm so concerned I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Lasimia? Lasimia. I'm going to say Lasimia. Laz. I'm going to call you Laz. Thank you very much. Thank you for the follow. Welcome along. I hope you are enjoying the chaos of the Blackout Racing League. And we're about to have another move straight away as Buck 20 prepares his car in the slipstream, opens the DRS, punches a hole in the air, and uppercuts his way through into P4, again on fresher mediums. But it's those newer tyres, the new tyre advantage once again, that is paying dividends here. But of course, Daniel will not give this up, and look how much more battery he has. So I was saying that the move is done and dusted, but with no battery left at all, Buck 20 could be swallowed up, and into La Roja, it's going to cost him. Daniel sweeps past and cuts off the racing line before the turn happens, and up into P4 he goes again. Like I said, battery is so important to keep a hold of here. You need to defend your position just as much as you get the position. And so, Daniel Gilligan turns, not very robust defense, but he turns it immediately into an attack. He turns attack into attack, really. Bit of intelligence you need to win the overall battle in this game. Formula 1, a sport of many things. Of technical genius. Of mind games. Of shoving people off the track, apparently. But Buck 20 gets a great run out of Ascari. He does have a penalty to his name, by the way. I forgot to mention. My apologies. Does have a penalty to his name. A 5-second penalty at that. Currently up 7 positions from where he started. Most of the top 7, in fact, have improved from where they started, which is great news for them. Daniel has the momentum round the outside, but once again, DRS will be in the favour of the McLaren man. But he'll be wise to this, hopefully, but he has no battery left once again. And Daniel has a whole host of battery left. So once again, as they head into the first chicane, here we go then. Very wide, though, through the second part for the Red Bull, just carrying too much momentum. The gap now at 8 tenths, and surely you would imagine that Buck 20 does have the move done, and he can set about trying to haul in the Ferrari of Captain Wilco. Only 10 cars left in this race, so in real F1 terms, everyone would score points. But of course, in Blackout, it's the top 15, so even though Maximus was the first to DNF, everyone scores points. Yay! Happy days, honestly. It also means I don't have to press the shift key to spectate anyone anymore, which is something my brain can hack for at least a little while longer. Here's your order then currently as the race begins to stagnate a little bit. The gap's just spreading out here on lap number 15. Thanasi P1 leading by almost 6 seconds. Milo there in the background is trying to pursue him as much as he can in the McLaren with 6 seconds to gap. Captain Wilco sailing through in P3. Buck 20 in P4 with Daniel in P5 as he actually is now in DRS range, but he's spun it. He's got it all wrong and he hits the inside wall at Parabolica. Just too much momentum or not enough rear traction and Dirk almost hits into him. That could have been very interesting indeed. His teammate just manages to get around him. Daniel, though, keeps firmly out of the way and is, albeit with emotional and physical damage, does keep his car in P8 and actually opts to stay out, interestingly. Doesn't think the damage will be severe enough. So, like I was saying, it's Dirk in P5 with Giraffe in P6, the lead Red Bull. Stark in the second Ferrari in P7. Ferrari now 4th and 7th. They have a decent number of points as something's happened to Wilco. Buck 20 is now up into P3. And what on earth went on there? Because I didn't see what happened to Wilco. Buck 20 now promotes himself up into P3. It's a McLaren double podium currently. And where the Constructors' Championship is hotting up between the Mercedes and the McLarens, suddenly there is a small chance that it is not all doom and gloom for the McLaren team, even though Thanasi is electrically quick and holding down P1 like there's no tomorrow. McLaren with that 2 and 3 is exactly what they need to further bring impetus to winning the Constructors in this season. Milo, meanwhile, was just gained by a second. I can only assume Thanasi got it wrong in Parabolica or Alboreto corner or whatever you want to call it. The point is, the gap's now come down by actually a second and a half. So what was a gap of 6 seconds is down to 4.3 seconds. And on tyres that are significantly older than the McLarens, that is not what you want to be having, even though he does get the traction out of the first chicane and increases the gap again by another couple of tenths. So forget I was even excited, apparently. But still, mistakes like that are not what he can afford. Of course, he does have that comfortable cushion between himself and the McLarens behind. Just getting a little unsettled out of the second part of La Roja. Feeling like he has to push the car a little bit, which is interesting. Because surely, with the gap he had, there was no need to push the car as hard as he did. Comfortably holding it down, though, and service is resumed for the Mercedes driver. Not much battery left. He's really pushing it as hard as he can. Miller's got plenty of battery. Buck 20, the man who is, well, the Duracell Bunnies jumped off a cliff, honestly. Look at how much battery he doesn't have left. Wilco has plenty, as does Dirk. Giraffe has quite a bit. So does Stark. So does Daniel. Buck 57 doesn't. If your name's Buck, just don't bother having electricity, basically, is what I found out. Magico does have a significant amount of battery. There is hope for the Duracell Bunny yet. That's all I'll say. Into lap number 18. We are 2/3 of the way through this race, and I leave you quickly with zero commentary. I won't actually, because here comes Stark on Giraffe, potentially going for the move on the inside of Parabolica, but we know how that ended when Timalele tried that on himself. Giraffe leaves the space, though. He decides Stark is there. He decides not to fight it too heavily at all. And with DRS being deployed on the Ferrari, it will be as textbook as it ever will be, surely. But no, here comes Giraffe again. Unbelievable, really getting his neck into it. Around the outside he'll be for the first chicane. But Stark will have the inside line and surely more confidence on the brakes. Yes, he does. Gets the move done, and the Ferrari man promotes himself up into P6. Maybe I should always do that. Maybe I should just say we're riding on board with someone for a lap, and then suddenly people start battling. That's good fun. The gap's really beginning to stagnate themselves, though. As you can see, Thanasi there on the medium tyre, 17 laps old. Hasn't made a pit stop, though, crucially. Leading this race by 5.2 seconds. Then it's the McLaren of Milo, with Buck 20, 6.6 seconds behind him. Then almost 5 seconds between him and Wilco, and 6 seconds between him and Dirk. It's all stabilising very nicely now, I must say. When does Thanasi pull the pit lane trigger, though? He has not pit in this race. As you can see, it's only himself and Daniel that actually haven't pit in this race. Of course, Daniel's still carrying that front wing damage, so deciding it's not going to hinder him that much, but I mean, it's front wing damage at the end of the day. It's like trying to smell and not having a nose, really. So if you're Voldemort, it's just a really sad time, to be honest with you. But anyway, I forget what my point was. The point is that surely he would come in and change it. He's not losing too much time, actually. So I forget anything I said. Meanwhile, Stark comes in, and there's a reason why the rain is coming down. So suddenly, as soon as I said Thanasi hasn't made a pit stop yet, he should think about new dry tyres, Stark is the first one to pull the trigger and go onto the intermediate tyres. For Red Bull, though, it's a double stack, and that is just pure pain compounded on top of extra pain for Mr. Daniel Gilligan. Will go onto the intermediate tyres, though. And if the rain is as vicious as it supposedly is, then perhaps we will find ourselves with a very interesting conclusion to the final part of this race. Currently, the sector time's not too far off where they were anyway, though. Still 1.1 seconds down on his first sector time. Or rather, second sector time is Zeus. So I don't think it's quite time for the intermediates yet. I mean, generally, the delta between slicks and intermediates is a really significant amount. So if you pull the trigger too early, you end up overheating them. You just burn through the compound. It melts like magma. It's terrible when the track is too dry. You can see, though, the track's slowly beginning to have patches of reflective water. Water is pretty much always reflective, so why did I say that? I forget my point. Once again, we are watching Thanasi, though, and we're watching the track evolve slightly. And I'm watching Stark very carefully here to see what he does on his intermediates, of course. Dirk ahead of him is on the dry tyres, so we'll immediately see what kind of pace Stark has in comparison. Did gain a 10th there through the Ascari chicane. So maybe as soon as I say that it's getting, or that it's too early for the intermediates, suddenly it could prove to be an inspired decision. We're about to find out. As Wilco comes into the pits, I can only assume for the intermediate tyres, and he has pulled the trigger to go onto the intermediate tyres here. Unbelievable stuff. Raindrops departing the halo at rapid speed as we watched Thanasi there going down under the bridge at Ascari, only losing half a second from his previous lap time in Sector 2. So, really, is it still the optimum time? Well, let's watch Stark. Let's see how much time he's gaining. He's gaining a slow amount of time on his teammate, but what I'm watching is Wilco on Dirk. Let's see how he's coping with this. Through the corner, lighting up the rear tyres, setting them ablaze, but does actually have decent traction, and through Lesmo 1, is gaining time on Dirk. So this now could get very interesting. Dirk through the Ascari chicane, as you can see. Meanwhile, Thanasi continues on for yet another lap. Still, himself, Milo, and Buck20, the top three, still deciding it is not time for the intermediate tyres. Wilco, though, has caught Dirk, and by caught, I mean he's caught him up by half a second since I last checked in. So suddenly, where I said before it was too early for the intermediates, could prove to be an inspired decision. Also partially because those hards are well past their sell-by date now. If those are past their sell-by date, then these have contracted a disease, because the mediums that Thanasi's on are 21 laps old and crying. Look at this. That's not the situation I want to look at, though. What I want to look at is the gaps here. And as you can see, we have Wilco only 15.6 seconds behind Dirk. Of course, the gap between himself and Buck20 was not a huge amount. And if it doesn't rain that much, I mean, we still have a significant amount of laps left. We have 6 tours of this Italian Grand Prix track to go. Magico into the pits, meanwhile, as you can see. The game decides not to show me that because I'm on the wrong thing. But anyway, the point is, off he goes onto the track on a set of intermediate tyres. Meanwhile, it's Buck57 that's making moves on his intermediate tyres, gets past Giraffe. Battle of the intermediate runners is won in this particular occasion by Buck57 in the Mercedes, promotes himself up into P7 as he's looking to promote himself further forward because, like I said, Constructors' Championship, it's getting feisty, it's getting spicy. Meanwhile, Milo's caught up more time on Thanasi. The gap, which was around 5.5 seconds, if not more, is now back down to 4.7. So making mistakes out in front is Thanasi. Could get very interesting here. And out of turn number 2, Milo gains about 2 tenths just on the exit. And suddenly, things could get very, very spicy indeed. Still, the top 4 have not pulled the trigger. Dirk is losing time hand over fist to Buck20 ahead of him. Wilco only 12.7 seconds ahead. While Dirk is losing an astronomical amount of time, we have to watch Wilco. While he is catching him, we have to see if the overall cumulative gap, which is currently sat at around 30 seconds, comes down significantly as through turn 1, carrying a whole host of speed there, but gaining a significant amount of time, about 3 tenths on the exit. Very nice. Milo is gaining, slowly but surely, on Thanasi. Meanwhile, there's a Red Bull off. What on earth's gone on there? Daniel's had another oopsie out of the Parabolica. Looked like he was in the gravel, actually. Must have taken too much speed or locked the rear brakes Either way, it's not the ideal scenario. He's demoted to last of the runners in this race, but still 10th place, which is a relatively decent points haul, all things considered. Meanwhile, Thanasi does pull the trigger. Into the pits he goes, and as does Milo. I assume Buck 20 will do the same, but no, Buck 20 stays out. So, Buck 20 deciding to be the one who doesn't go on the intermediates. Thanasi goes on to the softs, and Milo is the one that's going to make this very spicy indeed, because he's gone onto the intermediate tyres, and that gap, of course, is 4.1 seconds. So now, we really see what on earth's going on there. In Sector 2, there's a yellow flag. The Red Bull of Giraffes had a problem. He's flung his neck out too far wide, and it's resulted in him having egg on his face. So now we find out who's made the right call. 3.9 seconds was the gap during the first chicane. Thanasi immediately pulls out a whole heap of time on the soft tyres. Is it still not quite time for the intermediates? Has the crossover not quite happened? Start comes in again, meanwhile, off the intermediates. Perhaps, or perhaps because he had front wing damage. I have no idea. Into pits he goes, and he fits on softs. So, there's the conclusion for you. Intermediates apparently was not the way to go. And Milo in the McLaren, well, it looked like he had a good impetus for putting on the intermediates. It has come back to bite him. The gap increasing time and time and time again. Despite the fact that it is raining, it is slowly getting more moist. But it is not moist enough for the McLaren man. He is in P3 and losing time to Thanasi ahead. Crucially, though, not losing much time to Dirk behind him. So it should be a comfortable P3 regardless. But suddenly it gets interesting because, of course, Buck 20 has not pit. He's got 4 more tours of this circuit to go. Thanasi, of course, is on the new soft tyres as Daniel comes out of the pits. I think it was Giraffe, actually, that came out first. There's Daniel still in the pit lane on the bottom right of your screen. Yellow flag there as he gets dutifully out of the way of the McLaren man. We now have to see if Buck 20 can hold this out for the last few laps of this race. But Thanasi gaining just over a second in the first couple of corners is probably not what he had in mind. Through the first couple of corners goes Daniel. It's been a race of mixed fortunes for Red Bull. First safety car, they were flying high, and now their wings have been cut off. Red Bull does in fact not give you wings. It gives you P9 and P10. Still a few laps to go, though. You never know what could happen. The gap now down to 4 seconds. So, I mean, we do also have to bear in mind the tyre life of Buck 20 is 19 laps. He's got tyres that are 18 laps older and harder than Thanasi. So that's probably why he's not having the greatest time on his medium tyres, as the gap is cut in half immediately. Melting through it like butter, the Mercedes man in hot pursuit of yet another win in the Blackout Racing League. It'll be his 3rd win in a row. He won in Belgium, he won at Zandvoort, and he could well win at Monza yet. The gap to Milo behind increases to about 9 seconds, meanwhile. The gap to Dirk behind him, though, is increased by double what it was. So that'll be great news for him. He can just take it nice and easy now for the rest of this race with 3 laps to go of the Italian Grand Prix. Through the first corners they go. The gap is now under a second. And if you ever needed a more clear demonstration of newer tyres versus older tyres and softer tyres versus harder tyres, you can't get much more obvious than that. Buck 20 losing time, hand over fist, and it might just take a great exit out of La Roja to really unsettle him, but Thanasi decides to play it patient. He's going to wait for the DRS, and rightly so, although he could go for the move into Lesmo too. That would be audacious. Does he manage to keep it on the road on soft tyres? Yes, he does, albeit with a bit of a slide out of the corner. He also does have DRS on the way out, and it is a comfortable lead margin as he weaves about there, maybe to get some heat into his tyres, or maybe to just get the ire of the stewards. I don't even know. He didn't disrupt Buck 20 particularly. He steams his way into P1, and that surely, pending I don't curse him, will be yet another race win in the Blackout Racing League for Thanasi. 3 in a row it will be. Technically 4 in a row if you count the sprint race at this track. Crazy. Holds a monolith of F1 victories with just 2 laps to go of the Blackout Racing League's Italian Grand Prix. Thanassi, your leader then. We're looking at the P2 man, Buck 20. Meanwhile, it's Stark on the soft tyres, who has steamed past Buck 57. So Buck 57 actually passed Wilco, but Wilco's coming to the bits as well. It turns out softs is the way to go. The rain is in fact a faux pas, and we've been absolutely flummoxed. Stark gets straight past the Mercedes man and up into P5 to Tifosi, jumping for joy. And can he now, in a very dramatic twist of fate this will be, can he get can he overhaul a 27-second gap to Dirk up ahead and take P4 on the final lap? I say it's possible. I don't even know about you. It looked like Dirk made a mistake into the first chicane. He lost about 7 seconds to Milo. Unbelievably. Buck 20 losing time hand over fist meanwhile, and Milo is catching up massively. I can only assume because his medium tyres are goosed. 21 laps old those tyres are, as are Dirk's hards. 21 laps to the good, or rather to the pretty bad. Dirk brake very late for the chicane. Start gains about 3 seconds there. So don't adjust your sets. There could be time yet for the fortunes of the Ferrari driver to change, or maybe for the conditions to change. Still, the rain trickles down. Much unlike the British Grand Prix, where it absolutely tankered it down for all of the 35% race that we had. But one man has been absolutely imperious, and he is on his last lap of the Italian Grand Prix. I can confidently say not much else will happen unless there's a dramatic twist of fate and he gets it all kinds of wrong and messed up on this final lap. The two McLarens as well, unless I jinx them and cause a meteoric and, well, terrible curse. I hope I don't. But they will finish P2 and P3. Like I said, though, one man has risen above all. He's risen to the challenge. He's risen above his competitors, the tyres, and even the weather. He's had it all thrown at him in spades. He kept his head clean, kept out of battles where he needed to, and simply scampered away from there. And Thanassi, who has been imperious in the last 2 races, has been imperious in this one as well. He comes down the penultimate straight of the Italian Grand Prix, and what was a win in the sprint race is elation in the main event. Through Parabolica, Thanassi goes. And so long as he keeps it clean, he doesn't have to do anything overzealous. He trickles through the final corner. And Thanassi, for the 4th time in a row, takes the win in the Blackout Racing League. He wins at the Temple of Speed. The world on his shoulders. He brushes off that weight and calmly breezes into P1. Buck 20 will just get P2, but with that penalty, demoted to P3. But it doesn't change McLaren's fortunes. A great haul of points in the constructors' standings. Dirk will soon be across the line and will take P4. Stark, unfortunately, could not diminish the 27-second deficit. He only managed to get it down to 17 seconds. Dirk across the line. It's disappointment in one Aston Martin. The other one will be pretty happy with that, though. P4, and a great result there for Dirk indeed. Stark through the final corner, and the Tifosi will have something to smile about. It's a great host of positions for Stark. Finishes where he started, and through all of the chaos, he crosses the line and bins it. And the prancing horse now has broken and gammy legs. But in the end, it doesn't really matter as the Mercedes plows into him. And there will be controversy all the way round. But it's a penalty for Buck 57. That means Captain Wilco steers his ship into P6. It's a 5-6 for Ferrari, a good haul of points for them as well. Magico takes P8. The Red Bull line out the order of finishers in this race. 5 in the end. That did not make the checkered flag. But what an imperious drive from Thanassi. Mercedes marvel at Monza then. A dry race that ended out wet did not dampen the spirit to the top 3, that's for certain. Their fortunes did not change. The Greek driver takes the win. Thanassi has yet another win in the Blackout League. He says, I've got enough of those, sure. Thumbs up. Don't care, mate. Cool as a cucumber. And so was his driving. He takes yet another win in the Blackout Racing League, with McLaren getting a great haul of points to boost their constructors' hopes even further. Well, Monza Mayhem turns into French faff. Oh, we're going to France next, aren't we? Anyway, before we get too glossed up in that, let's have a look at the actual race results. As we scroll over, it was Thanasi, of course, that took the race win with Milo in P2 and Buck20 in P3. Dirk in the lone Aston Martin that finished the race in P4 with the Ferraris of Stark and Wilco in 5th and 6th. Buck57 with the fastest lap and 7th place, Magico in 8th, finishing where he started, Giraffe in 9th, Daniel Gilligan in 10th in the Red Bull. People that didn't finish were Jamie Tarquin, Big Sam, J-Lane, Timalele and Maximus, the final person who entered the race and still gets a point despite everything that happened. Well, the big story, Thanasi gets the full complement of race-winning points for both the sprint and the main race, if my memory serves me correctly, and it usually does. The full complement of race-winning points is 30 points for first place. So he'll be jumping for joy at that particular eventuality. Well, that was the Italian Grand Prix then. Madness all round. And all I have to say is hopefully the French Grand Prix can bring some absolutely beautiful stuff indeed. Well, we have a bit of a wait now until we head over to the French Grand Prix at Le Castellet, where the runoffs are as big as... I'll let you finish that sentence. The main point is, I hope you enjoyed the first race. I hope you enjoyed the chaos. As we head away from the Italian Grand Prix, we head over to France. Hopefully no white flags waved, but someone who didn't. The big story of the day, Thanasi takes the full compliment.
Till I get up, time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways. And on we'll go.
Well then, here we are. The waiting is almost over. And now I have a question for all of you. That question is, do you like bleach? My second question to that is, do you like having bleach in your eyes? Well, I need say no further what race we're going to then. We're going to the French Grand Prix. So, yeah, there's that, I suppose. Anyway, however, if you're racing for an Alpine driver, it's good news. Vive la France, says Magico. Hopefully, they will find a considerable collateral amount of points there. My voice chat has been suspended, but I don't use it anyway, so it's okay. Now, let's preview the French Grand Prix. Of course, we returned to Le Castellet, this track, which we're going to, Paul Ricard, in 2018. Before that, it was a track that was used a lot in the 80s for the French Grand Prix. Before my personal favourite French Grand Prix track, Magny-Cours, came along, and then that was axed, and then we got this ugly duckling in the specimen and surroundings of swans, which I absolutely hate. But anyway, enough about me ranting about French Grand Prix track, because while it's not the greatest looking track I've ever seen, or the nicest track in the world, or in fact anything, what I'll give it its flowers for is, in fact, it is a decent qualifying track. If you hook a lap together up nicely here, it feels pretty good. And that is about as much as I can give it. Although, while in real life, there's not that much to write home about. In the Blackout Racing League, and in video game terms, it actually is probably... not probably, it generally is a very good track. So, touch wood. My desk is made of wood, in case you couldn't tell. We'll have a very, very adventurous and fun race indeed. Currently only 13 people. Jay Lane's gone missing. I really don't know why, to be honest with you. But anyway. So, currently it's lap 1,749. It's gone down to 48, 47, 46. They need to fix that very quickly. For some reason, they've decided the word lap before the timer is a good idea. So now we're just counting down. Which is very ominous, and I'm not a fan of that. But anyway, here we are. Qualifying. We are back in qualifying land then. For... this time, the French Grand Prix. Bet you've missed qualifying. Of course, the sprint race, which we had last time in Monza, bore some fruit. It was a decent little sprint race in the end. Jamie Tarquin lost it on the final corner. The traction of the Mercedes just propelled Thanasi ahead, and his exit as well. He got the switch where he needed to, and as a result, he won the sprint race, and he won the Italian Grand Prix itself in the end. So, a very, very, very high standard of driving there from Thanasi. A late pit stop in the end, the call to go onto softs instead of intermediates when the track was slowly being coated with rain was an inspired decision, as it turns out. Another race win in the Blackout Racing League. Proper race wins, but I say proper race wins as if the sprint isn't a proper race win. But in terms of full-on race victories, Thanasi got 3 in a row. And of course he had the ones in Miami and Imola, which takes him up to 5 now. So that's pretty incredible, isn't it? So we get the qualifying session underway. Buck 57, Jamie Tarquin, Milo and Dirk are your first 4 cars out on track. Like I said, this track really is quite the qualifying track. It's very satisfying to flow through and get it hooked together. Let's hope our drivers can do exactly that then as we go through now what is 16 minutes left of the qualifying session here in France. In real life, of course, those strips on the outside, the blue ones and the red ones, are actually abrasive. If you spin out on them, they will make your tyres very unhappy, for lack of a better term. Whether they simulated that in a game, I have no idea. And you'll be surprised to know, my fun facts, that they are red, white and blue. I bet you can't guess why. Because it's French. We wait for the French Revolution to begin, and here is the French Revolution. Magico exits the pit lane to the adulation of the French crowd. But I will let you ride on board, turn up the noise, and sample the volume as Buck 57 takes us for a lap of Le Castellet. And immediately it's invalidated and we can stop watching on board. That is not the start he would have wanted. Let's see If Dirk can get a lap, that is not invalidated into Narnia through the first 2 corners, keeping it well within track limits. And now comes the chicane here. Of course, he can scamper over the curbs, but is it worth doing that? Luckily, in his case, he gets it bang on, exactly over the right-hander, just as much as he would have wanted. And then through the hairpin, use that curb on the outside as much as he can. It's a purple sector, courtesy of him being the first one through it. That has done it cleanly, although Jamie Tarquin, right behind him, will get a whole host of slipstream. Well, a tiny bit anyway. He's in the toe at least, which will be great news for him. Meanwhile, Dirk makes his way up to the chicane. Break at the 100-meter board, generally speaking. Go through the left. Try not to get out too wide because you want that perfect line and that slingshot out of the right-hander, which he gets brilliantly done as the Aston Martin propels its way up the hill, trying to break the slipstream, actually, as it heads to the outside. Jamie Tarquin got that chicane absolutely spot on. Through the right-hander, absolutely flat out as you like. Nothing to see there. Flick the car in, then change down the gears, get the front to stick into that second part. And if you're Jamie Tarquin, you've absolutely flown through that bit as well. So as quickly as Dirk gets through it, as you can see, Jamie Tarquin opting for an earlier turn in, but he actually coaxes the car through there. The momentum of it is in his favour, the mechanical grip sorting him out. Late apex into this corner, sets himself up nicely for the final corner, and he will have slipstream from the Aston Martin of Dirk as they come across the line. Dirk, get ready. It's P1 and Jamie Tarquin's P1 with a 1 minute 29.6. That is our first properly representative time of the qualifying session. And now we wait for the times to tumble. Milo is next across the line and goes with a 1 minute 30.6. Jamie Tarquin holding provisional pole by a second. But of course there are a bunch of people still yet to do laps out on this track. El Capitan is well on his way. Battery being deployed, using all of his electrical charge and charging his way through the right-hander. This one, you can just throw the car in and the aerodynamics sorts you out immediately. Such a roller coaster ride, Le Castellet, in a qualifying lap. Balls to the wall, 1 lap affair. In the race, we don't talk about it. I've already said what I think about the French Grand Prix track as a racetrack. But through the second to last corner, should I say, and now through the final corner, hooking the car in. Use a tiny bit of curb, but not too much, lighting up the rear tyres. There's fire in France, and will he set the timesheet alight? He does, almost actually, nearly ahead of Milo for P2. The Red Bull crosses the line, and I believe begins his first lap of the qualifying session. It is Giraffe through the first couple of corners. Yellow flags in Sector 1 as people get dutifully out of the way, as you can see. Timolele and Thanassi still yet to even consider setting a lap in this qualifying session. Big Sam sets a lap, meanwhile, of a 1 minute 31.2. Magico with a 1 minute 32.6. Fun fact about Big Sam, he actually had the top 200 time around France for quite a while. So there's big expectations from his Alfa Romeo team as he goes into this weekend. You can see Giraffe's teammate Daniel preparing for a hot lap as he cools the car down through the last couple of corners, ready to pounce it onto the start-finish straight. Behind the Red Bull of Giraffe, Buck 20, of course, on a lap, flicking it in. And this is a track where he can afford to use his high downforce setups. And it could actually pay dividends, especially in the first and last sections of the track. Second section will compromise him slightly, but he will be willing to make that compromise. Actually, excuse me, it hasn't compromised him at all. A purple Sector 2 currently. Fantastic. And now through the right-hander he goes. Brilliant as you like. I'm going to hide the UI so you can see exactly what the lap is looking like. Through the left-hander he goes. And out of the corner using as much as the curb as he dares to. Lap still validated. It's green for go. And as he goes over the green DRS detection point, no cars are ahead of him. I'll let you do the rest on that one. He gets it all kinds of wrong into the last corner. Not too wrong, actually. Excuse me. But he gets it wide on the exit. So as he opens DRS across the line, it is P2, though. Only, well, it's half a second off Jamie Tarquin, but it's half a second ahead of his teammate. Very nicely done. A yellow flag in Sector 1 as the Red Bull of Giraffe gets out of the way, who is currently in 6th place. Meanwhile, we wait for the likes of Daniel Gilligan to come across the line, but he is red on his lap, and that is not how you take the left-hander, ladies and gentlemen, if you are on a valid lap. It won't adversely affect your time. In fact, it will improve your time significantly, but the stewards will not be very happy. Now we finally see someone out on his flying lap. The man who's won the previous 3 races is going 4 for 4. He's going for glory. Glorious 4. Through Sector 1 he goes. Euphoria, I guess, just turning the wheel as much as he can. It's still purple through Sector 1 despite that. It looked like he scrubbed off so much speed with understeer through that right-hander, somehow making it work out. And now down the straight he goes, DRS wide open, of course. Red Bull keeping out of the way nice and slowly on the inside, very dutifully indeed. Great to see, using as much of the curb as he dares and then some. My goodness, I'm surprised that wasn't invalidated. Somehow, though, keeps it all together. And up the hill he goes then, using the toe of the McLaren up ahead, a purple Sector 2. And we are about to see a stonking lap, quite frankly, I would suspect. Unless something catastrophic happens. Through the right-hander, cascading down. Use as much of the exit as you dare. The car hooked up, man and machine in perfect harmony, singing songs of sweet symphony at Paul Ricard, so there's not much you can read into that. But through the left-hander we go. Try and hug the apex. You can have a late apex. It won't adversely affect you too much. Through the last corner. Nothing too overzealous. And across the line goes Zeus for his first lap of the day. And it is a 1:29.5. Okay. Very fine margins between himself and Jamie Tarquin. So while sectors 1 and 2, he set the timesheets ablaze, it's fine margins between the Mercedes man and the Haas driver. So don't touch that dial. Watch this space because things could get very interesting. Of course, we have someone who is yet to set a lap and has been such a gem in qualifying, Timalele. I'll try and not jinx him, but let's watch a flying lap with the Aston Martin man around Paul Ricard. A clean lap then for the Aston Martin across the line. And it's a 1:29.7. So a three-way battle for the pole at the Castellet, which is a technical track. Let's not be too mean. It is a technical track. I might hate it with every fibre of my being, but at least it's a technical track. That's about as much of a compliment as I can possibly give it. But when push comes to shove, it's only third place for the Aston Martin man. I say only third place, like, oh my god, it's third place. It's actually really good. But the expectation of the Aston Martin driver is so high. We've seen him qualify at pole position at the death so many times. He has, of course, got a chance for one more flying lap in this qualifying session. Of course, we had the 50% race at Monza. It's a 35% race at France, so I don't need too much bleach and chlorine thrust into my eyes during this race. It's only 19 rounds we have to do, and then I can sleep peacefully, knowing that I won't have to commentate France for at least however long. I'm going to have to commentate France again, aren't I? Anyway, Thanasi on an out lap, as is Buck 20. Here we go. We've seen many drivers start doing out laps and then they decide, no, I don't want to do the out lap anymore. I've come in, I've changed tyres, and that's all I've wrote for my qualifying session, with one final little push. Although the reason one of the reasons Thanasi lost the pole in Zandvoort, partially because Timalele pulled out an absolute showstopper, but also because he actually got his first lap time invalidated on that new set towards the end of the session. And because of that, that meant he couldn't get the prime second lap time he would have wanted at the end of that session. Trying to go wheel to wheel with the Aston Martin. Dirk and Thanasi are side by side. Through the right-hander. As there's rain. Again. Suddenly, the weather is wreaking havoc as there's a spin. Thanasi hit by the Aston Martin. Whilst they were both on their outlap. So although I think Dirk actually... Well, I thought Dirk was on a lap, but he actually invalidated it. So that's why nothing's come from that. Thanasi spun round by Timalele's teammate. So... Yay, teamwork, but at the same time, what's going on there? Thanasi then with one final chance to turn his name up in lights. Timalele's retired from the session, meanwhile. Clearly he thinks the rain's going to take too much time out of the track. We are about to find out. The man currently on pole looking to stretch his advantage as the Ferrari comes out of the pit lane. And that probably would have compromised Thanasi's exit. Of course, pit assist is on, so I believe that it does accelerate for you as you come out of the pit. So through no fault of the Ferrari's own, just came out wrong place, wrong time for the Mercedes man. And as a result, it's compromised his first couple of corners. But we'll have to see what the Sector 1 time is looking like across the first split. And he's a second down on his current split. So that is qualifying pretty much over. Unbelievably, Thanasi will have pole position. And when push came to shove, the rain came down. And this time it did massively reduce the track conditions. And kudos to Thanasi for trying to get another time in. Kudos to everyone currently on outlaps for trying to get another time in to improve their position. But it's not looking very likely. 1.7 seconds down as Jamie Tarquin retires from the session in the pit lane. As does Daniel Gilligan, who's currently P6, might I add. So kudos to him. A great little session from him. That is most definitely where he'll end up starting for tomorrow's race. Through the left-hander, Thanasi goes, and I would be absolutely sure he doesn't complete it. As look at that, the Fernando Alonso steering technique won't save you there, my friend. Sends you spearing off towards Germany, and depending on what decade that is, you'll be feeling very upset about that. As aliens have happened, I don't believe it. But when push comes to shove, that is the end of qualifying at Le Castellet. And Thanasi pushed his car and shoved it on pole position, but not by much. Only 12 thousandths of a second separate him and his closest competitor, Jamie Tarquin, in the Haas car. Both of them very robust racers, of course. Will there be fireworks? Hopefully not, of course. The primary objective of this league, of course, is fun. We aim to have fun in this league racing series above everything else. So try not to take anything too seriously. As much as I might make it sound serious. Dirk retires from the session. Everyone's retiring. That's the rest of the grid, really, when they see Max Verstappen's out on the track. But so concludes a Le Castellet qualifying session, and where I gave it its flowers for being a great qualifying track. Unfortunately, the rain has come down, and so has my pain and depression started. Only 4 drivers yet to retire from this qualifying session, and then we can get on to 19 laps of racing for the Grand Prix. 3 drivers left to retire. So it will be pole position for Mercedes once again. However, it is very much contrasting fortunes for the two. Buck 57, Thanasi's teammate, down in last place as DRS is disabled. For the right reasons, of course. There is too much moisture. A start could be giving us a lap here of Le Castellet. He's going for it on the softs. Goes very wide into turns 1 and 2, but keeps it on the road. And welcome to State of Survival, where with 777 free spins, you can unlock all your free heroes for absolutely free. This is fantastic. Hopefully Stark's State of Survival gives him just as much fruit. But with 3 seconds down on his first sector split, well, I don't really expect a massive haul in time unless miracles have happened at EA Sports. Down the straight we go then. We'll start complete this survival mission with his chosen hero, which is Lucky, which gives some buffs, I think. I wouldn't know. I don't play State of Survival. I just know their adverts are quite bad, I guess. It's voice acting for year 3s, basically. But anyway, Stark comes out of the chicane. Up the hill he goes, and there are the tyre tracks of a man who's driving a snowplow currently. If it was snowing. Unfortunately, it's not, though. It's raining. Through the right-hander he goes, and this is the fastest we'll see it all day. Does keep it on the track, actually. That was more than I expected. A big slide on the way out. Tokyo drifting round the right-hander. This is what you love to see in Formula 1. cranking the understeer so he can get on the power and perhaps kick out for some oversteer, and he does a tiny bit. Great stuff there. A nice little bit of showbiz as he comes through the final couple of corners. And when all is said and done, Stark will start the race in P5, and he's drifting his way through the final 2 corners. Keeps it pointing in the right direction. Great stuff there. If there was a championship for style points, you would have won it. Oh no! It's gone catastrophically wrong at the last opportunity. A massive 360 across the line. Egg on face. And he's still trying to take himself out, but failing miserably. I'm trying to have to make this sound more exciting than it is. He goes across the line, concedes defeat to Barrier, who in this case did not give him the goods. It will be 5th place though, so really, I don't think he'll be too depressed with that result. One man who'll be elated is Thanasi, P1, Jamie Tarquin, P2. Timolele completes your top 3 after a race of very much downwards fortunes in Monza. He'll be hoping for much more fortunate fortunes in France. That was terrible, but the point is he's looking for even more. Buck 20 in 4th. It's a British line out all the way from 4th to 9th. Viva Britain. And then 10th was not British. And that's all you really need to know. And so we go to the race. 19 laps, I believe, if maths serves me correctly, at Paul Ricard. I just read it off the sign there. There was a big pause, okay. The F1 Paddock Club, in this case, has not been advertised as widely as some of the previous tracks. We have no idea if they've got a front row seat. We have to assume that they do, and that is actually the building above, which is apparently just purely glass. So not good in, for instance, I don't know, a hailstorm, or having eggshells thrown at it. Actually, if eggs would have to be like made of solid titanium, so they'd probably be fine, actually. We're getting off track. The point is, welcome to the French Grand Prix. Welcome to those of you that have just joined, and thank you to all of those of you that are still joined in and watching all of the chaos and creativity and crashes and all the rest in the Blackout Racing League. We are waiting patiently for the French Grand Prix formation lap to get underway. A track, of course, that in real life has been removed from the Formula 1 calendar, didn't come back after its race in 2022. The last winner of the French Grand Prix, of course, was Max Verstappen. If memory serves me correctly, also the joint most successful driver at Le Castellet in the modern turbo hybrid era. Both him and Lewis Hamilton having 2 wins apiece in this venue. As away we go for the formation lap. Thanasi once again leads us away. Something I haven't said too much. I can't get enough of saying it, trust me. Will anyone host a challenge though? Jamie Tarquin was right on his heels during qualifying and set a lap time earlier. So it could be a chance for Jamie Tarquin to flex the muscles of the American Dream Machine. But don't count out Timolele either. Could be a tasty 3-way battle. Nay, 4-way, 5-way, even 6-way, 7-way battle. You just don't know. It all depends on how hard they battle. As immediately, Thanasi goes off on the formation lap as he intends to try and lead this entire race, which is in Narnia compared to the rest of the grid. Let's see what tyres everybody's on, though. Thanasi on mediums. Jamie Tarquin on mediums. Timolele on softs. Interesting. Going aggressive is the Aston Martin driver in this 35% race, of course, so it is possible. Buck 20 on the mediums. Stark on the mediums. Daniel Gilligan is on the softs. Milo on the mediums. Wilco sailing his ship on the mediums. Big Sam once again on the softs as he was in Monza. Giraffe on the softs. Dirk on hards. Magico on mediums. And Buck 57. Why did I say 37? That's odd. He's on mediums anyway, and that is all you need to know in terms of the strategies for this race. And so we wait for the grid to warm up their tyres and make their way to their grid formation. French Grand Prix over the years has had many an interesting moment. Most memorable for me was Michael Schumacher's race in 2004. Alonso qualified on pole position that race, but it was strategy that won the race for the Ferrari team that day. A 4-stop strategy. Very audacious. Basically improvised, but it worked out. Michael Schumacher won the race that day ahead of Alonso in P2. It's also the Grand Prix venue. Well, as Thanasi gets disqualified from the formation lap, as so does Jamie Tarquin. Everyone trying to get disqualified from the formation lap, apparently. Or not. Forget anything I just said. Meanwhile, look at this. Buck 20 is pointed so far to his left, you'd think he was politically, well, correct or incorrect. I don't know. Whatever your belief is. All you need to know is if he was pointing right, it'd be the wrong way because there's a barrier there. 5 red lights for Le Castellet. I can see what's happening. We survey the grid. Lights out and away we go. And Timalele got a meteoric launch on the soft. Unbelievable start for the Aston Martin driver. And the fresh rubber, the softer rubber, propels him into P1. As through turn 1 he goes and he has a comfortable lead. Thanasi and Jamie Tarquin dropping down 1 apiece. But here comes Jamie Tarquin as Buck 57 was disqualified immediately. What on earth happened there as Jamie Tarquin gets out of a move into the chicane? Stark promotes himself up into P4. Crashed into the barrier at the end of qualifying. Oh no! There's been a catastrophic accident. The stewards will look at this. Magico's retired and everyone's retired. Stark's up to P1. An unbelievable overtake. And I can only assume there's been a catastrophic error. And so we'll have to go again for another French Grand Prix start. Stark gets a 10-second time penalty for corner cutting. Naughty boy. This French Grand Prix really hotted up immediately. We are restarting it, of course, so these results don't matter. But Stark now has a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. A corner cutting penalty and he's out. It's an absolute roller coaster of events. Mr. Tumble has absolutely tumbled into the barrier. Jamie Tarquin's retired. And now we wait for another restart. What was Sam doing? His best Daniel Kvyat impression. That's what he was doing, I think. I can only assume something went catastrophically wrong. And so Sam decided to take matters into his own hands so we could get a restart. There you go, guys. Stark wins again in the Blackout Racing League. And that's the night. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Good night. I'm kidding. We have to go again. I said it would only be 19 laps of the French Grand Prix, and now I have to order more bleach. The champagne is sprayed, or maybe bleach, since that's the liquid I'm clearly addicted to. That's probably not a good thing, but anyway. The champagne is sprayed. Despite everything, Timalele still got P3, so there you go. But we wait patiently, and we're going to have to wait, have a brief intermission before we get straight in to another sitting of the French Grand Prix. So I'll put it on standby. And we'll be there soon. Well, it's Vive la France in the Blackout Racing League. Or, well, it was, but unfortunately, many bad things happened. Big Sam went for a big dive bomb, which resulted in a big crash. I'd never seen a ferocious killing quite like it, personally. But anyway, we wait patiently as we go into another round of the French Grand Prix. I'll speak over the music a little bit. That's a little bit too... That's also too aggressive. Sure, that'll do. Let's speak over the music. Let's just have a nice, fun time then. 4 viewers! Hello, everyone. How's it going? I hope you're all doing very well indeed. Welcome along to the Blackout Racing League on F1 23, Season 1. Round 16 for the French Grand Prix. Where we wait patiently to get back into things because some absolute catastrophe happened. If you missed qualifying, by the way, we had a dry to rainy qualifying session. In the end, the first times were the ones that mattered. It was Thanasi that took pole from Jamie Tarquin and Timalele. At the race start we just had, Timalele got the race start to end all race starts. It was absolutely stratospherically quick. Straight up into P1, but Buck 57 got disqualified for some reason. And as a result, we are now waiting patiently for the French Grand Prix to get back underway and up and running. Whilst we wait for the lobby to be reset back up, and as we wait for proceedings to get back underway, I will talk about my favourite moments from watching Blackout so far this season. Treat this as a little summer break. Actually, you know what? The notebook's back. And that's all you need to see. No, let's begin. Let's begin with that absolutely... Firstly, Timalele's qualifying laps. At the death, seems to, more often than not, pull the rabbit out of the hat and always find himself at the sharp end. Which is unbelievable stuff. Monaco, even though it didn't count, I enjoyed Monaco personally. I enjoyed watching chaos ensue. I cursed Tom really badly. So there you go. As I mull through some of my favourite moments as well. Maybe not a favourite for some people, but certainly the most dramatic moment we had this season at the British Grand Prix. During the race, our first red flag of the season, as the Red Bull of Guardian, it was, rejoined the track directly into the path of Slam, who had some time to react, but unfortunately it was not enough time. Nowhere to go, slammed into the Red Bull, quite literally. Unfortunately, Milo was caught up in the collateral damage, and the then championship leader was out of the race. So that was quite something. Crow's win at the Hungarian Grand Prix is a fond memory of mine as well. Very good to see on the whole. Almost Vulcan not getting out of the way during the blue flags, though. Almost took out the leading three, which was Crow and then Shock. Thanasi and Timalele were right there as well to pick up the spoils, just in case he made a mistake. But we always see some great racing here in the Blackout Racing League. Sometimes it boils over, sometimes it gets too frosty. But more often than not, they keep it clean, and things go very, very well indeed. Well, it's great timing, because as soon as the song has ended, we sing our song of Sweet Symphony and turn up the volume of the Turbo Hybrid V6s as we are back at the French Grand Prix. Waiting in the pit lane once again at Paul Ricard. Absolutely brilliant. Let's hope no one waves their white flags here, of course, because it is the French Grand Prix. The French are notorious for, I'm going to get cancelled, aren't I? Anyway, the point is, we have an Alpine in this race. Of course, the home crowd will be cheering on the main man, Magico, looking for some solid points for the Alpine team. Of course, in this race, we only have 14 people. Maximus was having wheel troubles, hence why his Italian Grand Prix did not go as well as he would have first hoped. As a result, he has not joined us for the French Grand Prix. Hopefully, he should be back next week for more chaos at the Blackout Racing League, where I believe we're going to Singapore and Japan, but that's all subject to change, possibly. Who knows? I managed to guess that it would be Italy and France right for this week, though, so that's good at least. So then, formation lap. Once again, seems like the strategies will not be changing.
Formation lap gets underway here on the south coast of France. Each driver
Alex Jake, stop taking my job. It's my job. I'm going to talk over Alex since he wants to talk over me, but clearly no one's bothered to do the formation lap again. And I don't blame them, as we look at a beautiful camera shot of the first two corners there with a slight angle to just give off that edgy look.
As the cars make their way back to
Here's your pole sister then.
so
that's the Alex, shut up!
the race ahead today is a thrilling one. It will go down as
Hopefully it's a thrilling one.
in history books.
I've not been nice to the French Grand Prix circuit yet. It could still win my appraisal yet. Let's find out. The first start we had, Timalele thunderbolted into the lead. Let's see if he can do the same on the second start. Although technically the first start. No one disqualified from the formation lap this time. No funny business. No hunky-dory. When push comes to shove, who will win the French Grand Prix? You'll just have to find out as we head to 5 red lights. A lovely wide shot of the French Grand Prix track. We wait with bated breath. Lights out and away we go, and it looks like Timalele might have done it again, but a lot of wheel spin at the second start there. Gets straight past. Zeus defends the inside very robustly indeed, and Jamie Tarkin could have the momentum yet, but something terrible has happened to the Haas car. Massive contact. He finds himself right at the back again, and with front wing damage on his car. Not the start he would have wanted, but straight away Timalele again propelling himself forwards with that grippier soft tyre. And now the battle rages on between Timalele and Thanasi. Thanasi in P1, Timalele second, Stark up to third, Milo up to fourth, Big Sam's up to fifth. Unbelievable start with Daniel keeping his 6th place. Wilco in 7th, but here comes Timalele trying to go for the move on the outside. No, not thinking about it just yet. It's a long race, still a long race to go. Lap 1 out of 19, of course. These two drivers at the top of their game in the Blackout Racing League. That's what makes their racing so fun to watch. Most of the time, apart from when it gets frosty. Let's hope it doesn't do that today, but Tim Alele's got a good couple of laps, if not a few laps, it should be, of these softs, absolutely sending it to put the pressure on Thanasi to see if he can cope. And look at that, through the right-hander. That right there was the first chink in his armour, and trying to go round the outside, but potentially switching it back, almost clipping the rear of the Mercedes, and now could have the inside for the second to last corner, but the momentum is in the Mercedes' favour, keeps the lead for now. But this hard battling, like I said, is what's going to bring the likes of Stark and Milo into the fight. And through the last corner, the grip and the confidence Tim Alele had there was unbelievable. And might we see a change for the lead already here on lap number 2 of this race? To the inside goes Tim Alele, and through goes Tim Alele. The Aston Martin, a comfortable pass there. It's still not over yet, into the chicane. Perhaps Thanasi goes for a move, on board with him, thinks about it, shows the nose, but Tim Alele comfortably keeps the lead there. Then straight away we'll set about trying to get a margin before that DRS is enabled. Of course, the soft tyres will have that purchase, will have that extra grip, so that's what he needs to focus on. The lead is the Aston Martin man's for the moment. Down the main straight, meanwhile, Thanasi not really using battery. Was catching up quite a lot at first, but this is just pure slipstream that's keeping him in the fight. Meanwhile, Buck 57 getting past Giraffe, and Giraffe actually getting past Big Sam, so it's the triple whammy there. As down the inside goes Giraffe, or tries to go Giraffe on Buck 57, but nothing doing there for the moment. Two leaders line astern then. They've already pulled 2 seconds out on Stark then, who has Milo in very, very close company indeed. Then another 2-second gap between himself and Daniel Gilligan in the lead Red Bull, also on the soft tyres, might I add. This race, of course, far from over. 6/10 though, the gap now. Tim Alele beginning to stretch his legs in the third sector, where I thought he would. Of course, that soft tyre will have that purchase. Thanasi using a bit of battery just to keep himself in contention. But through this last corner, we saw how the Aston Martin bit into the corner. And look at the traction on the way out as well. The gap just over 0.8 of a second then, as DRS is now enabled. Fastest lap of the race goes to Tim Alele, courtesy of it being the second lap. And so through into the third lap we go, DRS enabled. Let's see what happens as Giraffe tries to get for the move on Buck 57, but defending to the inside does keep the move at bay. Meanwhile, now it's Big Sam piling the pressure on the Red Bull driver, perhaps showing the nose to the inside, trying to put the pressure on, but nothing doing there for now. Meanwhile, it's actually Captain Wilco who sails round Magico. Magico in P10 at the moment. Alpine will be pretty happy with that on the whole. The gaps, of course, aren't that big. Jamie Tarquin and Buck 20, meanwhile, must have been the two that made contact at first, because now they're looking quite sorry for themselves in 12th and 13th place. J-Lane, of course, isn't in this race either. The Williams driver retired out of the Italian Grand Prix, didn't make it along for the French Grand Prix. Hopefully we'll see him back next week for more Blackout Racing, but in this case the scoreboard says a massive, big, fat 0. The slipstream, of course, so powerful at this track, or perhaps Thanasi's using battery. For now, not really using it. It's actually the opposite way round. Tim Alele's the one that's using the battery, trying to escape, as Thanasi goes very, very wide out into the left-hander, and whilst trying to pile the pressure on and think about sending Tim Alele wide, he's actually sent himself wide, and it's cost him about 0.3 of a second there. So it's the battle, it's the meeting of minds. It's the battle of the brains out in front. Of course, DRS will assist the Mercedes man along. It's a long race to go yet, though. Tim Alele with hardly anything to play with in terms of electrical energy. Meanwhile, it could be Milo looking for a move here on Stark. The overspeed is immense, but the straight just isn't long enough to consider it. It's Captain Wilco, though, making more moves. Full Ferrari. Tifosi jumping for joy back in Italy. He's up to P8 in the Ferrari. Here we go then. Gap about 0.7 of a second as they go through the right-handers. Nearly 7.5. DRS will be wide open on the Mercedes. Still with the gap at 0.7 though, you wouldn't think that he's got the purchase. He's got that same slipstream and that strength in straight line speed to be able to propel his way past. And in this case, no, it is not the case. Cannot propel past, and actually compromises his run through the left-hander and the chicane as a result slightly. Slightly loses time on the exit, but not nearly as much as I thought he would have done. Goodness me. And the slipstream immediately kicks back into life as they go through the right-hander and go into the roller coaster section. Gap now down to 0.2. Tim Alele feels the need to actually defend into that corner, and Zeus could have tried to go underneath, but doesn't consider it in the end, thinks better of it, and remains in P2 for now. Timilele then just gives himself that breathing room again through Sector 3, through that right-hander. Left-hander, sorry. I know what directions are. Through the left-hander, finds the time. Thanasi finds the speed, though, through that left-hander that time. DRS is a tiny bit closer than he was before. And this is where it gets interesting, of course. Because he will have that overspeed, he will have that straight-line purchase. But turn 1 is not really a place you think about going for it. And no, he doesn't. Bides his time. That's exactly what he needs to do. So much about picking your battles as executing the battles. Be just as easily a front wing off your wagon as it is a comfortable pass and adulation from the crowds. Through the right-hander, flicking it in, and suddenly the confidence is in the Mercedes man's corner. Just over 3 tenths is the gap, and surely with DRS wide open, it'll be a comfortable pass for the Mercedes man. DRS open. Timilele probably won't fight this too much, and does not fight it too much, as through goes Thanasi for P1 in the French Grand Prix. The lead swapped once again here on lap 5. Meanwhile, it's Buck 57 making moves to the inside. DRS was wide open, leaves the door slightly open there. Daniel thinks about sending another one through, but Buck 57 spins it and bins it into the wall. Somehow the front wing manages to keep itself alive, which I didn't think was possible. But actually, no visible damage on my screen there, showing me any indication of damage. He does manage to keep it there. Meanwhile, Milo has passed Stark for P3. McLaren man, again, back on the podium here. Fantastic. Jamie Tarquin and Buck 20, both on the hard tyres, and both proving that the hard tyre is not the most... well, they're not the quickest compound in the world. In fact, it's the slowest, because clearly they've been losing time even to the likes of Dirk up ahead, even though their hard tyres are a lap newer and whatnot. Dirk, of course, on hard tyres as well. But he's in the DRS train, so that probably indicates for something. Meanwhile, Stark gets back past Milo. All kinds of switcherooing happening. Goodness me. Timilele still within 4 tenths of Thanasi. Meanwhile, the battles are not over just yet. He saved a bit of battery. Thanasi, though, has got plenty of battery. The mind games begin here in France. A good exit out of the right-hander is what Timilele needs. And as they go into the chicane, half a second is the gap, but that will be chomped on. Hand over fist. It's being bitten into, and into the chicane. In this case, Timilele hangs back for now. The overspeed, not quite what he would have wanted. Stays in P2. Milo, though, gets back past Stark again. Through in the DRS zone, has the outside line, but the move was done even before the chicane. And as a result, it is P3 once again for the McLaren man. But don't count out Stark. We saw, actually, Milo make that move. The arrow switching as they came into the right-hander. So he might have done the under and over on Stark. Stark catching up all the time as they go into the right-hander. There's a chance he shows the nose. Milo keeps it wide. Stark has the inside line. Could have been frosty. Space is left, though, plentifully. Great racing from both of them and nothing doing there in the end for the Ferrari man. Milo holds on to P3. Meanwhile, let's go to Dan Cam. That's probably a disgusting phrase, but he's currently holding down P5, Red Bull holding down P5 and P7, which is a good little showing for them so far. They'll be pretty pleased with that. The Italian Grand Prix did not go their way, so they just need to keep it together, keep it comfortable. But Daniel will come under pressure soon from Captain Wilco, and then once Captain Wilco's managed to get him out of the way, if he does, his teammate will be hot on his heels. Thanasi just stretching out the gap meanwhile. The medium-soft crossover surely happening at this point. Even though Timilele does have good purchase through the first sector, will have DRS. And this is exactly what he needs to, of course. Because he can perform a slight undercut if he needs to. On the medium tyres, as Thanasi will come in and hold on to the softs. But we've seen that the drop-off is actually quite aggressive. Still, though, with DRS keeping in range, and that's exactly what he needs to do. Meanwhile, Stark not keeping in range of Milo. 1.5 seconds now the gap. Gives Milo some breathing space. Just hangs the pressure off him a little bit. Meanwhile, it's Daniel that will come under pressure soon. In theory, Wilco and Giraffe are in the train, hot on his heels. Meanwhile, it's Big Sam and Dirk having a big old scrap, eh? Big Sam in the Alfa Romeo repasses Dirk to claim P9. Fantastic stuff, but up the hill, look at this. Dirk's not done yet. Up the hill he goes and deploying some battery or having some incredible straight line speed. Gets back past the Alfa Romeo man and up into P9. Captain Wilco, what are your orders, sir? Get this Red Bull out of the way. I can't do that for you. I'm really sorry. That's what you have to do. You have to commandeer the boat through these next couple of corners. Actually, Daniel pulls the trigger and goes into the pit lane. In France, of course, you spear into the pits at lightning speeds. Looks like they're about to spear into the wall. Remember F1 2018, where for a time the pit lane was on the main straight? You had to dive in that way. That was a weird time, man. Meanwhile, the gap is only 4 tenths between Timalele and Thanasi, meanwhile. Sorry. What on earth's gone on there? Just like before, where we thought Thanasi was down and out of the DRS range, he managed to claw his way back into it, and now Timalele has done the same. And so, DRS will be wide open. He's deploying the battery, and as you can see, Thanasi will have the inside line to his name, but shooting through and into P1 goes the Aston Martin once again. Clearly not too much disparity between the softs and the mediums. I will eat my words, which I will do because they taste very nice. But up into P1 once again is Timalele, but the battle is far from done as they go up the hill. Jamie Tarquin has a penalty for multiple warnings. That is not ideal at all. But up the hill they go to the inside of the right-hander possibly. Through goes Thanasi. He tries to go for the move. Might do the under and over here. Still side by side. Plenty of racing room given between the two. Very respectful. Much less akin to what last week was like. And they do keep it clean, and they both keep themselves on the road. Timalele P1, Thanasi in P2. Has the overspeed, does not think about going through at the left-hander. Remains in P2, but this battle is far from over. Great respectful racing between the two as we enter lap 9 of the French Grand Prix. Meanwhile, behind, as Thanasi has DRS, Stark has got back in DRS range of Milo. Thanasi will surely have the inside. He actually lets off. Doesn't go for the move into turn number 1. We know, we've seen in front of your very eyes, evidence immediately how powerful the DRS range is. And the DRS itself is, should I say, not DRS range. Slipstream itself is another matter. You combine the two and you've got yourself a lethal concoction. The Mercedes man hooking it up nicely on the mediums. As through the right-hander we go. The gap around half a second. And that's essentially the optimum gap that you need before DRS starts becoming in effect. Although 6 tenths of a second here is not what Thanasi would have wanted. And as we go down to the chicane, he will not be able to get past the Aston Martin. Timalele managing the gap very well there. It's back to the Ferrari of Stark meanwhile. The prancing horse is galloping with DRS wide open. And just like at the Grand National, could scamper through into P3 and does so. Great stuff there. The prancing horse indeed prances its way up the order. It's a provisional podium for Stark. Meanwhile, Dirk's got past Big Sam, trying to find his next target, find his prey. It's Magico in the Alpine currently, who rests in P6. He'll be very happy with that so far. Daniel, meanwhile, went on to the medium tyres. The drop-off on the mediums hasn't been very aggressive at all, deciding that an undercut will be valuable. It's already caught up a few seconds to Big Sam ahead. So it's proving to bear fruit so far. Timalele, meanwhile, enters the pit lane. The first of the leaders to pull the trigger. Thanasi does stay out, and I can only assume Timalele is going from the softs to the mediums. Anything other than that would be, well, preposterous and stupid, quite frankly. And it is indeed the yellow sideboard medium tyre. And to that same token, if Thanasi decides that going from the mediums to the hards is a good idea, I don't know what to tell him. He's clearly called Ferrari on that one. Out of the pits comes Timalele, hopefully not into a huge host of traffic, and it's not a huge host of traffic. He does have some clear air, a little bit of a gap between himself and the fighting Magico, and his teammate Dirk up ahead, who is in DRS range. Of course, Timalele will be shouting, nay shrieking over the radio to say, get out of the way, man! I'm trying to undercut Thanasi. But of course, Dirk is in his own battle here, wants to improve his position. It's a whole host of mind games here, the team orders. Do they apply the team orders? You're about to find out. Dirk giving Timalele a great slipstream, if he is. Doesn't look like he'll yield into the chicane, though. I could well be wrong yet. Looks to the inside of Magico. Nothing doing there. And surely as they come through the chicane, he will have to let Timalele through in order to improve his chances. Oh, he does it inadvertently. Dirk slides out of the way. Much not of his own... Well... His car's accord, his car basically overruled him. Lawrence Stroll was on the binger there. Timalele now up into P6 and chasing down Magico. Hopefully shouldn't be too held up on those fresh medium tyres. Thanasi, meanwhile, stays out. All the while, Timalele is getting a healthy helping of undercut, and he will get the switch back on Magico. This will be a great move, but we saw how it went into Parabolica last time. not going to do it there. Into the left-hander, Magico staying out, and this is not what Timalele would have wanted. Stuck behind the Alpine, will get a switchback out of the final corner though, and it's easy as you like after that. But it's time. He could ill afford to lose really in his battle against Tanasi, who will have fresher soft tyres. And I assume he will have been calculating this very meticulously, wondering exactly where Timalele is on the track and if he will encounter traffic on his flying laps. Meanwhile, Daniel gets past Wilco, courtesy of Wilco just coming into the pits. The pace over Wilco, though, the undercut was absolutely electric there. Brilliant stuff. A multitude of seconds have been applied. Meanwhile, Wilco comes out to the pits on soft tyres. But Jamie Tarquin's got great momentum there on his hard tyres. Of course, not coming out of the pit lane and not without confidence. Meanwhile, Wilco keeps his foot in robustly. Tries to barge his way through. Jamie Tarquin won't give this up, of course, and he does manage to keep P9 for now. Wilco knows, though, there's a DRS zone right up ahead. Although he doesn't need it. Switch back central. Great stuff there. And he will have DRS. Of course, Slipstream is super powerful. We know this. And actually, it's Jamie Tarquin that seems to get it in the end. So I'm going to eat my words. But he doesn't need it. He's not going to think about fighting this, surely. And he does not indeed. It's buck 20 he has to worry about, as Jamie Tarquin gets another 3-second penalty for the multiple warnings. Thanasi, though, stays out again. All the time that he does stay out, of course, I mean, kudos to him. He's going to have electric pace by the end of the race. But all the while, Timalele is gaining time hand over fist. Stark and Milo, meanwhile, it's a battle of the pit crews. Generally speaking, they don't have pit mistakes in online mode. It's only in my team where I feel depression. Milo doesn't have any mistakes. Out on soft tyres and just out behind Stark. Both started on the mediums. And now have made their mandatory stop. And fight they will for the final podium position. But wait a minute, what's this? Daniel Gilligan out of nowhere from the wilderness on his medium tyres is in provisional P3. He's in a podium position, and the Red Bull man could well have a say in this podium fight yet. We know how aggressive the soft tyre drop-off is, of course, so don't count him out for 1 second. Of course, he has been on his medium tyres for, well, quite a while. Let's find out how long he's been on them. The answer is 4 laps currently, but DRS will be obviously enabled. Stupid. But the main thing is, Stark is well within range and will surely breeze past the Red Bull man. But that is proof right there of how dramatically powerful the undercut is. So if you ever needed proof, there it is. Daniel moves up, but Stark with DRS, of course, is going to fly straight past. Goes a bit wide into the chicane, though. So has the momentum, but almost too much momentum. A bit too much zest in the citrus flavouring of that overtake. And so, Daniel now has the slipstream as they head up the hill towards the roller coaster right-hander. And could well have a say in the overtake yet. Hardly anything to separate the two of them. He looks to the inside for the right-hander, but nothing doing there. The momentum on the soft is absolutely meteoric. And through goes Stark into P4. And Milo will want to quickly dispatch of Daniel as much as he can, because all the while, Stark will be getting away on his new softs. Jamie Tarquin with another 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. That is not ideal. Thanasi, again, has stayed out. My goodness me. He is really counting his chickens. I hope he's counted them right. Although I said this last time at the Italian Grand Prix when he didn't go on intermediates, and it was... I ate my words again. Tasted like orange, thank you for asking. Tastes very nice. Tastes sweet. Timalele reducing the gap to 17.4 seconds. No idea what the pit delta is like on the F1 game, of course. I believe it is around, I would say, 19 and 20 seconds. Could well be wrong. Wilco gets a 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. He cut across the English Channel, and they were not very happy about it. Buck 20, meanwhile, has recovered to P9 after the starting lap shenanigans, should I say. Decent recovery on the whole. Contrasting fortunes, Jamie Tarquin started P2 and now down in last position, albeit on new softs. Also, albeit with about 95 seconds of penalties to his name. Timalele in hot pursuit of this man. When does Thanasi pull the trigger? The answer is, he's exceeded track limits going into the pit lane. So suddenly, the complexion of his race has completely changed. While he thought he had it all easy and under control, and he will be pitting onto the soft tyres, he's now got a 5-second penalty for overshooting the pit lane, and he serves it immediately in his pit stop. dear, oh dear, it's suddenly got very interesting. He's going to lose a whole host of time, but of course, he has just qualifying lap after qualifying lap to send it on those soft tyres to the end of the race. But his misfortune could be Timalele's maniacal laughter of victory. Hopefully it's not that. That would concern me, but now his teammate's ahead. So this gets very interesting. Perhaps there are team orders yet. Thanasi drops to what would have been about 6 seconds behind, is now 11 seconds behind Timalele for the last few laps of this race. As I said, the complexion of the race completely changes now. Timalele just has to keep it consistent. The medium's drop-off isn't hardly that aggressive, to be honest with you. But Thanasi, through his own mistake, has ended up costing him big time and immediately served it in the pit lane. Jamie Tarquin takes the fastest lap of the race, meanwhile, in the MoneyGram Haas F1 team. What is a MoneyGram? Genuinely, what is a MoneyGram? I have no idea. Dirk defending this really hard, though. Squeezes Zeus to the inside, and Zeus gets it all crossed up out of the chicane. And there is still time yet for things to get frosty in this race. The gap now up to 12 seconds. Dirk has done Timalele a solid there on his old hard tyres. And so it gives him just a little bit more breathing room here, with a handful of laps to go at Le Castellet. What's the story in Balamori? Well, wouldn't you like to know? I'll tell you one story is Milo is in hot pursuit of Stark. That final podium position is still well within his reach here. McLaren could have a double podium finish. Consecutive podium finish, should I say. They had the double podium finish already in Monza, which is incredible for them in their Constructors' Hall. They'll be going for the same again here, as Buck 20 changes onto the soft tyres. Dirk, meanwhile, backs Stark up big time. The procession the Dirk train is on. He had a first course option of sushi and sashimi, and Milo has sashimi Stark as a result. Round he goes of both of them, and to the inside line, which he had for turn number 1. It doesn't matter. He's already completed the move thoroughly up into P number 3. Jamie Tarquin, another 3-second penalty. He's on the moon. He's into the pits, and I can only assume he's retiring from the race. He is retiring from the race. He thinks there's nothing left to be found. Let's see what progress Thanasi can make, though. Timalele on 5-lap old mediums versus Thanasi on fresh, soft tyres. Stark, meanwhile, retakes Milo with the DRS. It's about as textbook as you're ever going to get from the Ferrari man. Prances his way up back into P3. And now Dirk's got the Red Bull of Mr. Daniel Gilligan to worry about. He's catching him on his fresher medium tyres. There is still time yet for things to go astray in this race. Thanasi has done a great job at catching the gap up initially, down to 9.8 seconds. Of course, though, the 5-second penalty, perhaps he was just limiting himself and seeing what he could do. Who knows? Jamie Tarquin, meanwhile, his car pulls off to the side. Hopefully nothing adverse comes from that. Nothing on the marker boards. So we carry on. The gap then, 9.6 seconds, as I can only assume. Thanasi is pushing like all hell, and the Duracell Bunny is in a coma right now as a result. Fastest lap of the race, a 1:31.6 for Thanasi. Timalele has plenty of battery to play with, and cutting that curb to the absolute limit and then some. My goodness, unbelievable that that wasn't a warning. Stark keeps P3 though. All kinds of battles materialising before our very eyes, one of which is the Red Bull of Daniel, who is piling on the pressure on the second Aston Martin, thinking about a move into the chicane. Shows the nose. Feints a move, but nothing doing there currently. Goes out very far left. Into the left-hander. Goes out to the left of the left-hander. That's a interesting juxtaposition. But we'll have DRS on this straight. The gap 0.4 of a second. And this will be surely an absolutely textbook move from the Red Bull driver. Dirk doesn't make it easy, of course. But Daniel is clearly through. Cleanly through. And where for Thanasi it was a slightly trickier affair. In this case, Daniel has no such problems. And up into P5 goes the Red Bull. Race update then. Let's see what's cooking in the hood. The answer is Milo could be going for a move, but no. I got you there, didn't I? Anyway, what I was actually meant to say. Timalele leads by 7.5 seconds. Thanasi in P2. Stark is P3 with Milo in hot pursuit in P4. The battle for the final podium position is still on. Daniel Gilligan in P5. Keeping a watching brief of those two with Dirk in P6 still. Actually, I believe he's already pit. No, he hasn't. Into the pits he comes then. He finally pulls the trigger. Captain Wilco, who was in P7, surges his way up into P6 in his speedboat. Giraffe moves up to P7 with Big Sam surely moving up into P8, with Magico moving up into P9. Fantastic stuff. It's the Battle of the Bucks, meanwhile. Let's see who comes out on top. Buck 20 round the outside of his fellow Buck. Thinks about a move into the final corner. Hards versus softs. Surely it's going to be a textbook move. The traction is going to be superior. The DRS will make him even more superior. A bit of slipstream will also add some spice. And so, into turn number 1. Buck 20 wins the Battle of the Bucks on this particular occasion. Nothing doing on 11 lap old hards for the Mercedes man. Not long to go then. If Thanasi hadn't got that time penalty for track extending into the pit lane, just missing it by, I was going to say a minuscule margin, but it wasn't minuscule, was it? He overshot it quite badly. But the point is, had that not been the case, he would have been right up on the back of the Aston Martin right now. And once again, my strategy quarrels would have come back to bite the bullet. And he would have surely been straight in the running for another race win. But so long as Timalele keeps it all together, he just has 2 laps left to go with a gap of 6 seconds. Thanasi is not catching up enough. And so the Aston Martin man just has to keep it under control. Keep it consistent. Keep the rhythm going. Sing sweet harmony between man, machine, tyres and steering, aerodynamics and chassis, all combined to make one conglomeration of beauty. A combination of sweet technical genius. That is Formula 1. The gap now down to 5.6 seconds as Milo is in hot pursuit still. Don't count him out. He's biding his time. Just a couple of laps to go. As Thanasi has a time penalty for multiple warnings, for track limits, corner cutting, whatever it may be. That is the nail in the coffin, surely. Timalele doesn't really even have to do anything at this point. He just has to keep it on the road, really, to win another race in the Blackout Racing League and continue his quest for the championship lead. He is a way back, but never say never. We still have plenty of time as Milo does pull the trigger with DRS wide open. Gets past the Ferrari, but once again, we've seen so many times. Sometimes overshooting the chicane. Sometimes the slipstream is superior. Straight line speed is king, and up the hill they go. Look at the speed and the slipstream that Stark is gaining as they go up the hill through the right-hander. Then, my goodness, the overspeed was so much so just having to lift off there out of sheer terror of the pure and bridled pace of the Ferrari car with slipstream. Stark will bide his time though. There is still 1 lap to go in this race and he's all over him, my goodness me. Daniel, meanwhile, comfortably in P5. Wilco catching up a tiny bit, but it's not going to be enough. And he does have a penalty to his name, so it will not be a P5 result in the end, even if he did manage to overtake on the track, unless there is an absolute miracle that happens. Giraffe in P7, Big Sam in P8, Magico in P9, and still gradually, slowly but surely, catching Big Sam. Final lap of the race then. Timalele has transcended the rest of the grid, defied the odds, started on the softs, ended on the mediums. It's a case of what could have been for the man behind him, Thanasi. Mediums to softs, extended it, had incredible pace as always, as Daniel now gets a 3-second time penalty for track limits, but seems like he's got a comfortable margin over Wilco behind him, so nothing will be doing there. Buck 57, meanwhile, going for a glory run of a fastest lap. Let's see if he does that on the final lap of the race, or maybe even on this lap, depending on when he pitted. Oh, I missed it. Through the right-hander then. Thanasi might have had all the answers if it wasn't for the time penalties, if it wasn't for serving the penalty in the pits. But once again, this man has driven imperiously. Felt a bit disgruntled with some of the racing last week. Felt like there was a bit of injustice. Felt like he should have been in the running for the win on multiple occasions. Felt like he deserved to win. Well, I take my hat off to you today, because in France, you have managed that. You have done that comfortably. And across the line, Timalele goes to win another race in the Blackout Racing League. Thanasi did everything he could, but with penalties and track limits alike, there was nothing he could have done. A great battle between the two of them sees some great respectful racing in the end, and that's exactly what we all wanted to see. Timalele takes the win. It's Milo in the end who does claim P3. Just a massive dogfight ends with Milo getting the biscuits. Stark will still get biscuits, though. Don't take that away from the fact... Don't let it take that away from the fact that he still drove an incredible race. Daniel finishes P5, Wilco 6th, Giraffe 7th, with Big Sam... Well, there was Giraffe and Big Sam, but Magico, because of the penalties added on, it will be 7th heaven for the Alpine team. A great haul of points, and the French crowd will lap up the adulation. A good result indeed for the team. Listen to that crowd. Oh, I give up. They didn't help me out. But we wait for Buck 57 to cross the line. Let's see if he's got the fastest lap of the race. No battery left at all. Crossing the line. Does he do it? No idea. Thanks, Codemasters. But anyway, there you go. The French Grand Prix comes to a close, and where Italy stagnated towards the end, there was all kinds of stipulations that were happening at the French Grand Prix. Magico benefited from the multitude of track limit warnings and penalties. Managed to get up into P7, the game's driver of the day, and I tip my hat off to him. I'll give him driver of the day at Alpine's home race. Vive la France. At the end of the day, Magico gets a great haul of points for his dream machine. Way 2 last week and 1 today. Hell yes. Absolute scenes here at the French Grand Prix. My game is taking about 6 years to load, but when it does load, one man stands above the rest. Timelele does it again in Blackout. The man who was absolutely unstoppable on F1 22 won pretty much every single championship that there was, barring one which Milo won, I'm pretty sure. On F1 23, he is looking for the championship once again here. Him and Thanasi have given us some great racing, some hard racing. In the end, Timelele comes out on top in this one. It was Thanasi at Monza. It was Thanasi in the past too, even. Today, though, Timelele picks up the spoils and wins the French Grand Prix. Great stuff indeed. Thanasi in second, Milo in P3, Stark was in P4 with Daniel in P5. P6 was someone. I can't even see the scoreboard. Thanks, game. Really cool. Magico was P7. I believe that's all you need to know. Giraffe was P8. I believe Wilco was P6, actually. Captain Wilco steering his ship there. Magico P7 with Giraffe P8. Big Sam in P9. And I believe Dirk in P10. Great stuff. Well then, I said I wanted to bleach my eyes out at the French Grand Prix, but it turns out I was absolutely wrong. It actually gave us some great racing in the end. Some hard-fought dogfighting all the way through. And in the end, it's one apiece this week for Thanasi and Timelele. The championship leader extends his margin out even more, but there will be plenty of takers snapping hot at his heels, and there is plenty of drama and action to come as we go through the next rounds of the Blackout Racing Series. If I'm not mistaken, you are more than welcome to join us for round 17 and 18. Of course you are. But if I'm not mistaken, the tracks are the Japanese Grand Prix and the Singapore Grand Prix, just in the opposite order. But I'm sure there will be plenty of madness there. Of course, Suzuka has seen many a dramatic moment, many a title-deciding moment. In this case, it's quite early on in the calendar, all things considered, so it will not provide that same level of drama, that level of intensity, that level of do or die. But I'll have all the facts and all the figures and everything else in between for you very, very soon on that one. And so concludes another week of the Blackout Racing League. Well done to all the drivers, and thank you once again to Blackout for allowing me to commentate on this wonderful league racing series. I enjoyed this a ton, and I wouldn't have it any other way, so honestly, thank you so much for allowing me to commentate. I hope I do it justice, as always. 2 relatively crazy races on the whole. A sprint weekend for the first one. The French Grand Prix gave us some amazing wheel-to-wheel stuff when it mattered. When it felt like bleach was the only way out, it turns out all I needed was the concoction and the remedy of wheel-to-wheel battling and respectful racing. And that is what we got for the most part this week. there you go. Once again, thank you, Blackout, again, for allowing me to do this. I enjoy it a ton, and please let me stay. I hope I do it justice. That's all I'll say. But thank you. Really thank you. I heavily, heavily appreciate it. Kudos to all the drivers. Thank you all for viewing this absolute, mental stream. We've been on the go for almost 3 hours now. Crazy stuff. My throat is feeling the ill effects. It was feeling it ages ago when it decided to turn into a soprano. But that is all part of the fun, isn't it? I hope you all enjoyed. And wherever you are watching this from, I hope you do stay safe, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And you are more than welcome, and you should join us next time when Blackout Racing returns on F1 23. Until then, the Singapore and Japanese Grand Prix. I once again thank you very, very much for watching. And wherever you are, a good morning, a good evening, a good night, and all the rest. Thank you again, and I'll see you very, very soon. Take care.